Excuse me, my voice is gone, but I'd like to call to order the Village Committee of the Whole meeting for June 13, 2013 at 7 o'clock. Can I please have a roll call?
Mayor Gunther?
Here.
The clerk's here. Trustee Addington?
Here.
Trustee Barker?
Here.
Trustee Barry?
Here.
Trustee Nero?
Here.
Trustee Scott?
Here.
Trustee Seneca? Here. Manager Searle?
Here.
Attorney Zemanek?
Here.
Public Works Director May?
Here.
Fire Chief Weiss?
Here.
Finance Director Parker?
Here.
Police Chief Mulhern?
Here.
Acting Community Development Director Malik.
Can I please ask everybody to rise and say the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Excuse me, this came on suddenly. I'll ask Jenny, the clerk, to do the open forum for me.
Okay, our first open forum is Police Chief Mulhern.
Good evening. I just wanted to take this opportunity to remind everyone, tonight is cruising nights, and next week is squad car night. And we have a very, very large amount of activities for kids, and it'll be next Thursday, June 20th, from 7 o'clock till 9 o'clock, and at 9 o'clock we'll have the Lights and Siren Parade. That'll start at Burlington and Cass and go north. Be a little bit different than years past. Years past we circle around and come back. This year we're just going to be going in one direction, north. So if everyone is looking, we are saying prayers for good weather, and hopefully we have the good weather. We will be out there in the parking lot, Burlington and Cass, around 6 o'clock. A little bit earlier, and then 7 o'clock all the festivities will begin. So, I'm sorry, 6 o'clock will be games for kids. There's raffle prizes, selling things for Special Olympics, and all sorts of things. Thank you.
Always a fun time.
Thank you.
Next, we have Bob Plowman and Bob Mackert.
Yay.
Good evening. We're back from PVPN, the Progressive Village Performance Network. My name is Bob Plowman, and I have Bob Mackert with me. He's the producer of one of our biggest shows that we've done thus far called Annie, the musical. It's one of our biggest undertakings yet. We have, I think, probably over about 70 to 70 plus people involved in the production, coming from all area villages, mainly from Westmont, of course. But it is going to take place the last 2 weekends of June. So we have 21st through the 23rd and the 28th through the 30th. Friday and Saturday, the shows will be at 7, and then we have Sunday matinees at 2 p.m. Tickets, you can reserve online, or you can pre-buy the tickets at the Westmont Park District Community Center. They're $13 for adults, $10 for children and seniors, and 4 and under are free, and groups of 5 or more are $3 off. And you can actually get more information on the show at www.pvpn.weebly.com. And this has been just such a rewarding experience, because this is what our organization is about. We've had several newbies, I'd like to call them, and several polished performers, and it's a very good, there's some very good relationships, because you see a lot of mentoring going on. So we're that organization that welcomes everybody and gives everybody the opportunity. So that's kind of a plug for us to get more people involved, because we're getting new ideas every day. Hey, why don't you do this? Why don't you do poetry readings? Why don't you do this and that and the other? And we're like, well, give us the resources, or come aboard, and we can make it happen. So Also, just to let you know, we will in August be hosting a fundraiser cookout at Ty Warner Park, a steak feed, and then we're going to have a show along with that. So it's steak and corn on the cob and that kind of thing. And then we'll have a show that accompanies it. So tickets will be on sale here shortly. August 9th, 10th, and 11th at Ty Warner Park, we're having Shakespeare in the park, Midsummer Night's Dream. So bring your blankets and your picnic baskets, and it's a free performance for the village. This is going to be the first year that we actually travel. So we are going indoors to the Westmont Library.
Library, yeah, correct.
I believe on the, what day is that, Bob? 23rd?
Yeah, the 23rd.
23rd, which is on a Friday. And then we're off to Downers Grove Official Park, and we're going to be putting on the play for some Downers Grove residents as well to get our name out. And then on Golden Pond will happen in October. So we're really excited about that too.
Just very quickly, I think I've been to every performance you've had.
Yep.
And there's the talent in this group is just unbelievable. So I urge everybody, go and see these performances. The other thing, while I have Bob here, because we've had some discussion about signage, this is a good time to bring it up again. Can we get their sign up over here at the Burlington lot where we usually advertise things? It's a park district, kind of there with the park district. We'd have to have staff put it up, or maybe here at the fountain. Do you still have a sign
Banner,
available?
Are you talking a banner?
Yeah, so
Yeah,
can
we have
we
two banners.
make that happen? Whatever
One of
we
the
have to do?
banners will actually go on the Westmont Park District building.
Okay,
But then we have an extra one that we'd really like to put in a high volume area.
to give you some visibility. So
Sure.
if we
I mean,
can make
with,
that
you know,
happen, that'd be great.
With over 80 people dedicating hours and hours, I know from your Park District guys that are putting the sets together to the band members to our choral director. I mean, they're all given freely of their time. It would be a shame if we don't have people show up. So,
Plus all the actors we have going.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so
That'd be
Bob's
great.
actually the producer. Do you have anything to say, Bob?
No, please come in. This is
I
our.
thought you'd bring the kids and we'd get a little.
Well, actually, they're at the Fresh Market right now
know,
performing.
yeah.
So that's where they're at, and you're not going to get any song from us,
Or Ron Gunter, or Mayor Gunter.
unfortunately. But any questions or?
I do.
Yeah.
You're performing at the Park District, right? Are you performing at the Park District?
No,
Brian?
Westmont High School.
Westmont High School, I'm
School,
sorry.
okay.
Westmont High School for Annie, and then the Park District, Ty Warner Park for Midsummer Night's Dream.
Okay, and your performance is on Friday and Saturday at 7 p.m.?
7.
And
then
Sunday matinee
matinees at 2.
Okay,
And now
I
this
just
is the
wanted to
first
have
time
that
we're doing 2 weekends too, so it's the last 2 weekends of June.
Do you have the date for the fundraiser?
Not yet. I think we do, but
Okay.
I didn't write it down, but I thought I'd mention it anyway to look out for
Great.
it.
Excellent.
Cool.
Good.
Go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your
Thank you.
time. Thank you.
Okay, Aaron Gordon from the Westmont Tobacco. Hi.
Yeah, forgive me, I'm not entirely familiar with these proceedings, but I suppose I came here kind of for some guidance more than anything. It's kind of in regards to the Pasquinelli Drive, the construction project that's going on, and I'm at a loss right now. We've had a lot of problems going on in that entire St. James Crossing area, and as you know, stems from, let's see, May the 24th until currently, we've had multiple problems with, I don't know if it would be the construction company, the subcontractors, that's why I'm at the village. We've had multiple power outages, lots of business losses, and currently we have to replace the 4-ton rooftop HVAC unit because the last time the power outage happened, it fried out the air compressor coil or what have you. So we had a couple estimates done, we've already had to pay. Plus, you know, there's a lot of potential damages. I have 246 plus boxes of cigars sitting in a humidor that were unable to be humidified and also got up to upwards of 90, 95 degrees. So I guess going forward, I'm just curious on what steps I could take, who I need to talk to in order to.
Yeah, we can have our Public Works Director address that. We are well aware of the situation up there. We actually have some
Right.
outstanding claims ourselves.
Okay.
There was a problem, I know, at least on one occasion, where there was some mismarkings by a process called Julie, which makes the people that did not mark it correctly liable for that, but I'll let him explain the process.
Sympathizing and recognizing what you're talking about, we too are I'll just say an owner of property up there that has been adversely affected by it, meaning the water main that's underneath Ogden Avenue and on Pasquinelli. Just to briefly, many of you heard this and you had an update at the Public Works Committee meeting earlier in the week. But although we do have interest in the construction project, it started out as a Pasquinelli only improvement, and over years of planning combined into the project with Ogden Avenue that it is today. It is technically a Illinois Department of Transportation awarded contract. It's their contractor. The engineer that's out there, although we've got a direct relationship with them, is under contract with the Illinois Department of Transportation and supervises all that. So we don't, I only point that out is because it's, it's quick to believe that it's a village project when it is in fact an IDOT proceeding. So everything that governs the contractor is related to their contract with the state of Illinois, and with the property damage, and for us it was the water main. There's a claims process that we're going through. Like any contractor, they'll first deny responsibility, and there's a whole process. The manager started to describe some of the other difficulties. You mentioned the power outages. Mm-hmm. We hear that there were 3. The engineer is aware of 2 of them. The last one was significant, that they drilled through a power line that was not marked on the ground. So just to further complicate everything that's going on that we're all experiencing, is that now it's seemingly not the contractor's responsibility. It was the utility locate, and so who does the claim go to? So we have a process that we have a link for to submit IDOT claims, and one for Commonwealth Edison too. Okay. I also have a note into Commonwealth Edison. Theirs is just on the website, but I'm trying to learn from Commonwealth Edison, because I'm told, I don't know this for a fact, but that last outage was hit and they came out and they responded, I want to say quickly, but within a couple hours, and took care of it, fixed it and left, and 2 or 3 hours after that, people were saying, when is the power going to come back on? And they didn't realize that they fixed half of it and half the mall had been out that whole time. And then they didn't get back out there until about 5 o'clock at night to start. And I don't know what you know, but it was like 9 p.m.
I know all of it.
Yeah, I mean, it was almost 9, 10 at night or something.
About 10:15.
Yeah, before. So first thing in the morning to 10:15 at night, they were without power. Some of that reportedly was unknowingly. So the clerk has your information.
I was going to suggest maybe you could get Aaron's phone number. We don't have that on there.
Okay.
And you could follow up.
And I'll get you the information on how to process it, but it's only as good as we know it. We're doing the same thing you are, just not to the
right. No, and I understand. I spoke with Noriega, yes. And he emailed me the list of every people to contact, IDOT, ComEd, the whole deal right here. Here's the email.
Great. As
the village,
just
and
a
that's why I came here,
suggestion, the best way that works the best, and it doesn't seem like it, is if you deal with your insurance provider too and let them interface with them, and it seems to go faster and more thorough than if you.
Okay, there were just so many different places to look.
Sure. Yeah. Well, there is, because we don't know who's at fault, and that's why they all have to look at each other and decide.
Okay. I'll put my name on here. Thank you.
That was all I had. Thank you. Thank you. I didn't know if you had anything else.
No, that is all. Thank you very much for your help.
And last but certainly not least, our Chamber Director, Larry Forsberg.
Good evening and thank you. It's a pleasure. I want to remind everybody on the board and all of our residents of two important upcoming events. The first is our community golf outing, which is going to be on June 25th. Everyone's invited to come out. We have an 11:30 check-in, 1:30 shotgun start, and a 6:30 dinner. We're partnering with 2 other chambers, Lamont and Woodridge, and we're expecting a great turnout. It's a really fun day. So I wanted to invite everybody to come out. We have our registration deadline. It's going to be Tuesday. If you'd like to register, just contact the chamber. Our phone number is 630-960-5553, or you can also register online at westmontchamber.com. Also, just around the corner, just a few weeks away, it doesn't seem like it, but the Westmont Independence Day celebration is coming at Ty Warner Park. It's a wonderful celebration. Things start about 4 p.m. at Ty Warner Park. There's food, refreshments, games, music, and last but not least, the best fireworks in Chicago at Ty Warner Park start about 9:30. So I encourage everybody to come out. If you'd like to take a more detailed look at the schedule, you can go to the Westmont Park District website at wpd4fun.org, and all the details are there. We encourage everybody to come out, have a great time. It's a beautiful event. And if you haven't been out tonight to the Westmont Street Fair, check it out. It's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
And for anybody interested, this is the man that gets the fireworks that are so wonderful. So,
Yes, it's true.
In light of the mayor's struggling voice, he's asked me to kind of walk us through the agenda tonight. It's not a formal voting meeting. I can testify that I talked to this man earlier today, and his voice was probably 10 times stronger than it is now. So I'm not sure what happened between several hours ago and tonight. But
I think he tried out for Annie. He was singing it. Went downhill.
I hope he made the cut. Okay, so the first or the next item on the agenda is the mayor's report, and you're going to try to
Call Larry up.
Okay, we'll have Larry McIntyre come to the podium. He's got some things he'd like to talk about.
I talked with the mayor early this morning, probably about 8:30, and the first thing I said was, "You sound horrible." So I can only imagine it's gotten worse. So anyway, we're going to talk, I guess, a little bit about the street fair. And you know, the Westmont Street Fair combines the Westmont Marketplace and the Cruising Nights. Last week was our first go around with the new layout, which is closing down Cass Avenue, and we had a great opening night, over 60 cars, and also over 68 kids activities done by the Westmont Library, who's working with us. Tonight, the car show actually is supposed to start at 6, and at 6 o'clock we had over 50 cars. And I got a text from someone who's over there right now and said we're over 75. And that text was about 15 minutes ago. So our publicity is working really well, and a lot of folks are really liking this layout. However, that's the reason I'm here, to talk about the layout. With things that are new and with changes, there's also challenges, and we want to make sure we're working with the downtown businesses to the very best of our ability to try to provide opportunity. We need to make sure that everybody in Westmont who comes down to the event, absolutely, check out the classic cars, visit our fresh market, do some shopping, but then also, please, go through the doors of our downtown businesses, especially our restaurants who are open after 6 p.m., and make sure you give patronage to them, because they need to be successful as well, and we need to work together on this. So meeting with the restaurants many times over the last 45 days, some different ideas have come forth. One which I'm not sure if we actually mentioned this publicly before, but we talked with some of the restaurants about doing dining on the street and or kind of in the parkway area of the sidewalk, making sure that there's enough egress for pedestrians. It looks like a couple of our restaurants might be trying that out real soon, so that's a nice opportunity. Also, the restaurants came forward and came up with the idea of what if we allowed the alcohol serving businesses to serve alcohol, sell alcohol within their store, of course, but then maybe have some sort of a mechanism where they get wristbands and or a specific cup, and then be able to walk within the parameters of the event. And just so everyone understands, Cass Avenue is now closed from Burlington to Irving, so it would basically be within that parameter. So I'm here to kind of introduce that idea, and that's going to be something that's going to be considered. But it's something that the restaurants have asked for, and Westmont Special Events is definitely interested in seeing what we can do to make these different types of things work. And then the other idea is the parking lot. Yes, Cass the Cass Burlington parking lot is prime parking for the downtown, and we want to make sure that it's available for the businesses, especially the restaurants. And so we are trying to come up with a mechanism in which we sort of ensure that the parking lot is utilized for the restaurants, specifically the restaurants and downtown businesses, I'm sorry. And I think we're still trying to figure out some of the details, but where it's at the moment is as cars pull in from the 6 to 9 time frame, maybe the time frame might change a little bit, there would be a signage there. There would be volunteers there. We're asking for the chamber's support to staff that, maybe some other volunteer groups. And there would be a charge of $10, but that actually buys you a coupon. And that coupon would then be redeemable at some of the different businesses that are open at that time. And so anyway, that's kind of what's out there. And for us to use a public right-of-way in that manner, that would take board action. And so that's kind of where things stand. Any questions regarding that?
Just something to consider. It's the first I've heard of that, but there could be a charge of favoritism in that you're providing this benefit to the restaurants, but not to the other retailers who are open.
And I'm speaking to the restaurants because those are the businesses that are still open at that time, but truthfully it's for all businesses. So the coupon's good for any downtown business that's affected with the closure.
For current day?
Those are some details that need to be figured out. Some people are saying that, but other folks are saying, what if you utilize that at a different time? The bottom line is that $10 purchase is going to go to a business, whether it be that day or whenever. And if they come in the next week, they still got to pay $10 again. The bottom line is that's money to our businesses.
If I could, well,
it's a whole new animal. Yeah.
While the mayor's trying to get his voice, if I could just playing devil's advocate.
Sure.
I love the idea, but I'd want, if it were up to me, if it were my decision, I'd say that coupon has to be used that night or Thursday.
Or a Thursday.
But preferably that night, because I know there are some people that will just pay $10 to park. Mm-hmm. And never go into a restaurant.
Well, but they have that option. I mean, that's what
I know,
the
that's the part I don't like. I want them to go to our restaurants.
Like a valet type certification work better, where to get out, like a lot of restaurants do. If you go to the restaurant, you get free parking. The counter guy, if you have a receipt from the restaurant or a comp on the because that way again you would prove that they've dined or bought something at a downtown. Of course, then it has to be monitored as they leave.
Of course. And so we've talked about some different ideas. I know a decent amount of people were in favor of that idea because the notion of charging to park in a parking lot that's always free might not sit well with folks. In fact, if people who have never paid to park in that parking lot, if they pull up and find out it's $10 to park there now, they might be, first of all, they might be confused, but then they might be turned off and say, I'm not sure what I'm going to do. There's pros and cons, and I'll even say Westmont Special Events, our board, working very hard to work with the businesses, try to be accommodating, but our board definitely has mixed feelings on that item because the last thing you want to do is have someone come to the downtown and have a bad feeling about their experience. You want them to come to downtown and have fun, which right now we're definitely doing that. Having said that, I think the ultimate goal is to make sure that that lot has reserved parking for people giving patronage to the businesses. So whatever that mechanism is, and ultimately that requires board action, use of that lot in that way or a similar way. So.
Cool.
Furthermore, Larry, I'd like to thank you and the rest of your group. I mean, it is so impressive out there tonight. It was just right out of a movie, seeing all those cars and all the people and the excitement. Of course, Mother Nature is cooperating wonderfully, but very impressive. And I would be leaving Bob hanging if he didn't tell me to really come out next week. He's very excited about the police and fire, so really looking forward to it.
Thank you. Thank you. Did you want me to stay here and talk about stormwater? Okay.
He just not.
Later in the agenda, you folks will be discussing the Stormwater Management Committee, and just wanted to give a little bit of an update because I have to get back over to the event. We had over 20 people, residents, sign up online to participate with the committee, and we're in the process of reaching back out to those folks. So unfortunately, we're not going to be able to pick everybody because there's more people who signed up than the number of slots that we had. But we're looking for representation from throughout the community, and we have found that we will be able to represent the entire community. Those folks are being contacted now, and by Monday, you will have the full slate of names so that when you act to create the committee, that'll be official.
Coffee. The coffee with the mayor.
Oh, coffee. I'll just do a recap, I guess, a little bit. We had our most recent coffee with the mayor over at Brewed Awakenings, and I think we had 20 to 25 folks over there. And Trustee Barker was there as well as Shannon Malik from Community Development. But it's a great opportunity for folks to come out and meet with elected officials, ask questions, and I think as these things continue to develop, we may come forth with a little bit of an agenda, maybe a question to pose to the residents. It's going to be an interaction, an exchange of ideas, but the first one went really well, and the next one is going to be, I don't have my calendar in front of me, but Thursday, July 11th? It's the first day of the
13th.
taste. Yeah, Saturday.
13th.
The 13th. Saturday the 13th. I just know it's at La La Lee. And so it's downtown Westmont, and I think, I still need to get the time frame out there, but I think we're saying 11 o'clock because the goal is to have the coffee with the mayor and elected officials, and then right after that, at noon, the event opens, and then we're going to strongly encourage folks to go down and buy some food from the Taste of Westmont. So it's actually a chance for me to also talk about the Taste of Westmont, which is just a month from now, and Kids-A-Palooza is on the Thursday night, that's July 11th, but then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, is the full taste, and our theme this year is a little bit country, a little bit rock and roll, so make sure you mark your calendars and come on out. I'm sure we'll be back to talk about more detail.
Larry, you want to mention about signing up online for volunteering?
Absolutely. If anyone is interested in being a volunteer for Westmont Special Events, and just so people understand, that organization is a volunteer-based group, and there's 11 people on the board. There's probably another 20 folks that make up our committee core. There's another 75 that make up all of our committee members. But then the weekend of the event, we have over 300 volunteer slots. That's what it takes to run that event, and we absolutely need volunteers. So if people are interested in signing up, you can contact our office. That's 630-829-WEST or 829-9378, or you can visit our website, which is westmontevents.com. Thank you. Anything else?
I just have one quick question for the village attorney and related to the charge item. Should we put this on an agenda for the next agenda? Would that, if the board will need to act to, do we need to act to set up that process of being able to charge for the?
Yeah, and Larry pointed that out. He understands that it requires board action and would require an ordinance. But it sounds like you're still hashing through the various options. So I guess
we are, but I need to kind of state that I think the restaurants, like I got people talking to me tonight, they were hoping it was going to start tonight. So whatever we can do to fast track this, even if we only have like an initial plan that's not completely together, I think we need to, I would like to try to work to create something that we can move forward with starting next Thursday.
So shall I put something on the agenda for
Monday?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that
we'll get
okay
something drafted that authorizes a fee to be charged on those Thursday nights from. I'll get the dates from you.
And I'll work on some language too and send it to you so you have all that parameters and then you can mold it how you need to.
Same with the open container then. That's something that I had discussions with Chief Mulhern on, and I think he's going to talk about that.
Yes.
But I did draft at least a very rough draft at this point of an ordinance to be added on Monday. If you're okay with this proposal.
Currently, the ordinances prevent any alcohol from being on the street, and also our current liquor ordinances require that any alcohol sold on the property be remaining on the property. If we're going to consider this, we would need to amend two sections in the ordinance Our recommendation was, and the board should have copies from Deputy Village Attorney Anne Marie Lamparello Perez, authorizing the mayor to be able to provide or permit businesses in the downtown business district to allow the alcoholic beverage to be out in the designated area for cruising night only. This would not be Taste of Westmont, any other event, any place else in the village. This would be just in the downtown business district and for cruising nights only. And during the cruising nights car show events pursuant to the village cruising night alcohol policy. And then we would also be asking the board to consider allowing the alcohol to be carried on the street. Part of the plan, which Larry outlined, but very quickly, would be is the businesses would provide wristbands to those patrons who wish to carry the alcohol outside. It would be some type of plastic container, whatever that would be, and it'd be up to them to make sure that they throw the cup whatever way in a proper receptacle, and also not to take the alcohol to a vehicle. That's one of the downsides to that. There's going to be no controls over that. However, the WSCC people would be in charge of monitoring this activity. If they saw somebody without a wristband with a cup, they would approach them. They do this now with kids on bicycles and rollerblades and stuff like that, asking them where they're at. The wristband will help identify that the person bought the alcohol at a business. The businesses would supply the cups. They would supply the wristbands. And again, the legalities of this would be was that we would amend the ordinances. One recommendation I would see, and I haven't talked to John about this, but I don't know if this is possible, but do we make this a temporary issue? Maybe have this in effect for the month of July, and back on the first meeting in August, we revisit it as a trial basis, see how it went, if there's any problems, see how it came up. Is it helping the businesses? Is it hurting the businesses? Is it helping the WSCC or hurting it? Get everybody back together and we evaluate to see is this something we wish to continue, or it really didn't work out the way that we think it did.
Wouldn't it be just as easy to, if we approve it, to approve it, and if it's not working, rescind it? Because I'm just thinking the way the meetings fall, it could mess up to where we'd have a week where we're in limbo. My other comments would be, I'd like to see us be, each business be consistent. So you don't have one business selling a beer for $2 and the next guy is selling it for $5, and the $2 guys, I'd like to see it consistent, you know, maybe it's $4, maybe it's $5, but everybody charges the same thing with the same size cup. Then the other question I have, you can't do that, why?
Can't control pricing for businesses.
Yeah, that sounds hard.
Can't the mayor do that?
It's going to be
No.
Okay, well, I would encourage it to them maybe then. I would encourage it to them.
Well, the one thing with that would be, oh, I'm sorry.
No, I just had one other comment is whose DRAM insurance covers if someone does leave the street fair and have an accident?
So who's ever serving? If they go to multiple establishments over the course of cruising nights, it's no different than if they
Then
didn't.
if they went from, okay,
If they didn't have a cup of.
okay, gotcha. So that's not an issue.
It is an issue.
No, I mean, it is an issue, but I mean, not
There are
one that
many
we have
questions
to
with this, but, you know, we can,
work through them.
this, yeah, basically, it's just an ordinance that says for cruising nights, you can have open container in the designated area pursuant to the policy that the local liquor commissioner establishes. And
I would just hate to see one business severely undercut so that now they're getting all the benefit, and then you've got really, really strong, good businesses that, for whatever reason, can't afford to do that. I don't know, I just was trying to make it fair for everybody,
That's one of
but
the
I don't know how
concerns
you
we
do
had with the Taste of Westmont. That's why this, again, it's only for this event.
Yeah.
And this event only.
Yeah.
That's what the businesses have requested. The Taste of Westmont, we wouldn't recommend it for that exact reason. You could begin into a pricing war.
Yeah.
You know, one thing to the cups is that some establishments may come up with specialty drinks that, you know, like you would see out at Beale Street or something where, you know, it's mojito or something. So,
That's kind of cool.
you know, if somebody saw that, they say, I may want that, which may kind of, you know, Amber or whoever has this, that's their
Yeah.
special, and where did you get that?
Well, that's kinda cool.
Versus if we all have the same, you don't know if you have a soda or whatever it may be. So, because that's kind of what I envision, that, you know, Fleming's may have something, his mojitos are very good. So,
Are you
so
pushing the mojito?
something like that, you know, in that aspect. And then secondly, what would we need more police on the street for that? Is that something that we've factored in or budgeted in? kind of thing?
We haven't. We could right now. We don't have any officers assigned. The officer that's on patrol stops, walks through. Deputy Chief Gunther and I walked through there this evening. Last week when I was there, the patrol officers are advised to, conduct extra watches. We could. However, that would be, pull manpower from the street. If there was, put someone there would be a cost to the WSCC. That's something to be considered. I think we would try to handle it just with walkthroughs, starting to see if we have a problem. Most of the businesses, as you walk and see, they're not the type where they're going to be over-serving on a regular basis. They don't, and we haven't had problems like that. They're more respectable businesses. They're more respectable patrons. I don't see the problems of intoxicated people walking up and down the street. But that's something I guess we would monitor. I would like to try to do with on-duty personnel first, and if we have to upgrade, then we would do that.
Good. Sounds fun.
And the glasses, I would guess we would let the glasses be up to the businesses, but I would prefer plastic. I don't think we want glass out there.
Oh, no.
All right. Thank you.
Oh, great.
Okay, the next item that the mayor had under his report was he wanted me to mention that he met with the Downtown Westmont Business Alliance group, or a smaller group of that group earlier this week, to talk about the tax that we have later on the agenda, the places for eating tax. And as we know, that was postponed from the last meeting, and one of the commitments that was made at that meeting was that a number of the businesses that participate in that conversation can't be here tonight to comment on things. So we're going to go forward with the discussion this evening, and those that are here, when we get to that item on the agenda, they'll be given an opportunity to comment on it. However, the mayor made a commitment to anybody who could be here Monday that we would open up the discussion and allow them to make comments at that time. So I just wanted to let the board know that. And then I wanted to have Chief Weiss come to the podium to talk a little bit about where things stand with our some of our deadlines coming up.
All right, thank you. Here to report tonight on the businesses that we originally had that needed fire alarm systems. And we originally began with 89 in the town. We have about 700 that need alarm systems. So we had 89 that needed to get alarms. So far, 23 have complied, have their systems put in. The 66 that are left, we've not had any contact from 30 of them. But we have had contact and discussion or signed an MOU with 36 of the others. So I started today and for the next week visit the 30 businesses that we haven't had contact with or made contact with us, just to see what we can do to help them along, answer their questions, give them facts to the rumors that they're hearing, and to try to get them to comply. We're also on Monday be sending letters to all of them, just in case I can't get a hold of the business owners or people that own the buildings, just reminding them about the June 30th deadline. We've had great discussions with a lot of the business and building owners. I've signed a lot of MOUs that go past June 30th. Some go to the end of the year, some into 2014. The goal is compliance and open communications, and that's what we're doing. And we're working with everybody to figure out what we can do to have this compliance happen.
Can we remind the B1 businesses that they're eligible for grant money to help offset a little bit of that cost?
I've been doing that, and I'll put that in the letter that will go to the ones that are left that we haven't had any contacts with. But we today, 3 of the 6 that I visited, I brought that up and told them they needed to contact the village to get an application and apply for that. So we're down to about 5% left of businesses in the town. 95% have complied. And we're going to work with that 5%, and our goal is to get 100% and have all our buildings protected. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Okay, that was all the items under the mayor's report. So now we'll move to the clerk.
The only thing I have to say tonight is if you're watching this, turn it off, go downtown, enjoy cruising nights. It's fun down there. You'll have much more fun. You can see this on the internet. You can see it on TV. It's on all the time. So get out and enjoy the beautiful night, and be sure and come next Thursday night for cruising, or for the squad car night. It's also a great time, and that's all I have tonight.
Okay, thank you. Village Attorney?
Nothing to report tonight, thanks.
I was going to mention that I thought we had a committed date for the next village tour, but it looks like we're going to probably have to change that date. So I wanted to let the board members know. I'd sent you out an email. And I know Trustee Barry had a suggestion too, that I talked with the mayor, and we're going to try to mix it up in the future and try to do some daytime, day of the week type tours, so you can get a different view of the community and not just on the weekend. So there'll be some information coming out quickly on that. There's a couple of committee meetings, and I don't want to steal anybody's thunder. Was anybody planning on addressing these? Okay, well, we have a Building and Zoning Committee meeting, a combined meeting coming up on Monday at 6 p.m. And then we have a Downtown Development Grant Committee that's going to be on Tuesday, the 18th, and that will be at 6 p.m. here in the Village Hall break room. And that is all I have. And I guess we'll go to trustee items, and because it'll be easy, I'm just going to start at one end and move around. Trustee Barry.
Larry was already here, but I wanted to comment on the cruising nights. It's just fantastic down there. I also, we have some retiring employees this month, and I know some of them are gone on vacation and so forth. But I'd like to recognize George Mossman, Mike Chorney, and Frank Koulis. They're all leaving, and I think most of them have kind of, with the exception of Mike Chorney, I think the other gentlemen have kind of declined to have any hoopla around it. So I did want to thank them for their service and wish them well in retirement. That's all I have.
Okay. Thank you. Trustee Eddington.
A couple things. First of all, schools are all done. So like in my block right now, I've got 23 little kids playing all over the place for the next couple of months. So please watch. Slow down a little bit because they're out having a good time, especially on a day like today. So we want to be sure that our kids get protected. I remember a time when I had 2 kids on the block. My 2 older granddaughters were getting younger on Trobby Street. Now I've got 23. So, and that's a concern. The other thing is, some people have asked through here and also the Lions about when will the Pitmaster show be televised. That was filmed during the Red, White, and Barbecue. Our understanding is that our show, which actually was one of the semifinals, will not air until the first weekend in August. But I will, between Chris Vitak and I, we will get that solidified and see that everyone knows. They're showing now the first 9 weeks, or the next 8 weeks will be all the preliminaries for the winners who will be in the 3 semis. So ours was the first of the semis. So our understanding right now is they said it would be the first weekend in August. We'll let everybody know as we get more definitive on that date, because it would be interesting to watch. It's right here in town, and they keep mentioning that they're in Westmont, so it's a good thing. That's it.
Thank you. Trustee Scott.
Just want to wish all the fathers out there happy Father's Day this weekend.
Very nice.
And that's it. Thank you.
Trustee Seneca.
Thank you. Just wanted to say welcome back to La Petite Suite, 5 years in Westmont. They were gone for a very brief time, but now they're back on this side of the tracks. They had a wonderful ribbon cutting tonight. It's so great to have them back in town. A wonderful Westmont business. So please go there and enjoy that wonderful bakery. Also, just a reminder to everybody, and Trustee Barry kind of alluded to it, our WSEC people are all volunteers. I mean, they, on a day like this, they're here from 8:30 in the morning till 9:30 tonight, and it's all volunteerism. So I just urge our residents to really appreciate that. And if you see them, give them a high five, tell them thank you, whatever, and better yet, sign up to volunteer, because it's fun and it's very rewarding. And then the last thing I had, I'm going to steal Trustee Nero's thunder, because I'll bet he's a happy guy. The Neighbors Magazine is now being delivered all over Westmont. So to the different zip codes, the Willowbrook zip codes, the Downers Grove zip codes that have been incorporated into Westmont, they all got their issue this week. So that's great news. And that's all I have. Thank you. Sorry, Steve.
I would just like to thank the mayor for the coffee social on Saturday and thank the residents who came out to that. I thought it was phenomenal for the first one. And I hope the residents went away with the idea in their head that the village government is on the same team, and they do care, and they want to hear from everybody. And I was just thrilled to be a part of that.
I have nothing tonight, thanks.
Sorry, Steve. Sorry.
Just read us.
Why don't you say it and we'll all act surprised?
It's exciting to have the magazine. I've been waiting a long time, and I know a lot of residents are happy, so. If you don't have it, let us know, because everybody should have it. It's incorporated in the village of Westmont, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Good.
Thank you. I'm going to ask Public Works Director May to come back to the podium real quick. With the brush pickup getting postponed and then restarted, we've had a number of comments from people that they didn't know about it. So I'd like Mr. May maybe to comment a little bit on that and try to get as much publicity as we can about the fact that it is going again and what the schedule is.
Yes, thank you. The brush pickup started on the north side of the tracks this week, last Monday. We got through it. It took 3 days to go through the north section, and normally when we had a much more aggressive brush pickup, when there was 5 or 6 pickups per year, the first pickup of the spring was always very heavy, and you were lucky to get through it in a week. It usually took a very long time, and that's from all the collection throughout the winter and leading up to the first one. There was, I guess to describe what the manager was saying is that whether it's by, phone or note or comment, or I actually had one individual come in to the garage, to the street division with a different purpose, but he was like, he goes, I know we're not having brush pickup this year, but and I was just like, well, but we are. So when we were in the budget process and the fate of the brush pickup program was threatened, and we actually did not do a collection in April or May until it was solved in the budget, we, for all practical purposes, canceled it indefinitely, and we couldn't answer anybody's questions. So the concern is that we have, that was, and I don't want to say well received, it was learned very easily that we were not having a brush pickup. And part of what made that easier, I'm not saying this in a good way, but since we don't have a published calendar, there were a lot of phone calls that were questions like, when does brush pickup start? And we don't know, it's canceled. Those people have not called back, and I'm just amazed at how many people we've bumped into that don't realize that we do have a pickup this month. We're doing 2 pickups a year. Per any one location. It takes us 2 weeks to get through the entire town, so we do the north side of town in 1 week. South side of the town will start next Monday. Brush has to be out on the weekend before we get to the brush pickup week, because when we go past your residence, when if it's on a Monday, it's not all week. We do it all week, but it's not a week-long pickup. It's one pickup at your location. So we ask that everybody has it out at that time. It also helps the foreman gauge how many crews he sends out to do that as well. There is no pickup through the summer months, and the next one will be in October. I don't actually remember the dates, but that will be the next opportunity to have free brush collection.
Starts October 13th, and then there's October 20th.
So 13th would be the north side then, and the 20th on the south side. And again, we're done with the north side now this month, and south side will start next Monday. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on, the next item on the agenda is items to be removed from the consent agenda. I'll ask the board members if there's anything at this point you want removed from the consent agenda. If not, I'll go through the consent agenda for the public's benefit. The items that we have on there currently are village board minutes for the committee of the whole meeting on May 30th, the regular board meeting on June 3rd, and a special board meeting on May 30th. We also have a finance ordinance number 4 that totals $893,488.37. And then we have several purchase orders, and I won't read all the numbers, but I'll give you the vendor and the total dollar amounts. We have the first one with Clark Environmental, which is our contractor for our mosquito abatement program. That's in the amount of $56,470.74. Then we have one for SHI International Corporation for $27,945. This has to do with server parts for our technology. We have one for Don Morris Architect in the amount of $15,345.84. That is the company that we use for building reviews and inspections. And then we have one for Ray O'Haron in the amount of $9,100, and that has to do with purchases for the police department. And then we have one to the Westmont Park District for $7,664.57. And as the board knows, we have a shared employee, and that's for our portion of salary reimbursement. And then we have Standard Equipment Company in the amount of $7,485.72. And that is for, I will have to find out because it looks like it got cut off. But then the final one that we have for purchase orders is HD Supply Waterworks. That's $6,628. And that has to do with meters for the water department. So the total amount of the purchase orders is $130,639.87. And then in addition to that, we have 2 proclamations, which I assume we'll want to read on Monday night. I know that we'll have people here to receive them. The first one is for Father Larry Dryfin, who, as many of you may know, recently retired as president of Mays Lake. And then we have one for the court-appointed special advocates anniversary. And I'll remind the board this was actually on a previous agenda, and they asked us to pull that, so we expect that somebody will be here Monday night to receive that as well. And if there's not any questions, skip over that.
On the tablet, it says arm assembly for that standard equipment.
That's a street sweeper repair.
Standard equipment is a street sweeper.
Okay, thank you. Oh, just mention that we have them? I'm sorry, I was confused. The mayor asked me to mention, for those of you who haven't noticed, that we have hanging baskets that have returned to the downtown. And I guess actually need to, in great part, thank the shared employee who we just commented about a few moments ago, because he worked diligently to try to put that together in very quick fashion. It's not the standard process that we've used in the past, where we've started growing them in weeks ahead of time. So in a very short order, this was something that the board prioritized in the budget process, and we were able to get those up, and I think they look very nice. And, I'm sorry for the misunderstanding. I wasn't sure. You were telling me there was a purchase order on there for it.
You the one that supervised the hanging of all the baskets?
Pardon? Pardon?
Is this the supervisory hanging of all those baskets?
No. No. Okay. Yeah.
I misunderstood.
No, we have other people that do that.
Okay. I saw him with that, that's why I asked.
It's his responsibility.
Well, it's his responsibility to oversee the project.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and he also spec'd it out because of his expertise. Yeah. Okay. That brings us to unfinished business. The first item is the board will consider on Monday an ordinance accepting the joint review recommendation for the Central Business District Tax Increment Financing District. This is something that just procedurally we wanted to do to finalize the process. As you know, we came to an agreement with District 201 that we announced at the last meeting, and to be transparent in the process that we're following, as well as consistent in how we handle the South Westmont Business District creation as well. We will have that on the agenda for adoption by ordinance on Monday as well. I believe the vote on that, I don't have that in front of me, but I think that was a 5-1 vote.
That's correct.
Yes.
And then the next item.
Can I?
Sure.
And John, probably this is directed at you. If you could, at some point in time, maybe just send out a quickie email for us dummies who came on after the fact, where we stand with both of these now. You know, when do they take effect? How do they get implemented? What are we supposed to be doing from this point forward?
We actually have a time frame, a time schedule that community development can update and have out to you. Okay. Yeah. So we can get that out to you tomorrow, or bring it Monday night, or.
That's fine. Just, you know, so that, because I'm really excited about both of these, and
sure.
Would like to be as much a part of it as I can, because I think I can actually add something to this.
Yeah, we'll give you an updated schedule on both those. Yeah.
Could I also mention that we do have 2 other staff members here that I did not see earlier. One is Deputy Police Chief Gunther, and the other is Deputy Fire Chief Connolly.
But I'm told by Chief Mulhern that Deputy Chief Gunther's not 100% here.
No, he's about 60% here.
He looks 100% to me.
No, he's about 60%.
That's what he indicated to me earlier, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, gee.
So that's why I didn't notice him there. So.
I didn't notice him either, and I didn't notice Connolly come in either.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is a Community Stormwater Management Ad Hoc Committee. I don't know if we have any more that we need to talk about that.
No.
Did we miss?
Did we miss one?
What the places for eating?
Yeah, place in the.
Oh, did I skip over that?
It is on mine, but that's all right.
No, you're right. Sorry. After I spoke about the fact that we will give an opportunity for people to speak on the places for eating tax, I, in error, jumped over it. I think I'd like to start by asking our Finance Director, Spencer Parker, to come to the podium, kind of explain a little bit of the background. And I do know we have some individuals here this evening that would like to speak to it. And as I said earlier, we will also allow public input on Monday as well. So that'll.
Right. Good evening. We have for you this evening and for discussion and consideration on Monday a tax called Tax on Places for Eating, which admittedly is sort of an odd name for a tax. It's the name that's listed in the state statute, and that's why we're calling it by that name. And this is a tax that was discussed previously at the budget process, and as you'll recall from those budget workshops, during the budget process, we were facing the loss of some of the revenues we'd had during home rule. We'd had a general sales tax, motor fuel tax, and then we had previously been able to use hotel motel taxes for general fund purposes. As we discussed at that time, those were no longer available. We'd had some increases in the economy, and then we were able to make some additional cuts during the budget process. But one of the things that was discussed during the budget process was a way to fill some of that revenue gap, and the item that was chosen during that budget process was this tax for places for eating, which is one of the few revenue sources available to non-home rule communities. And during the budget process, it was recommended that we adopt a 1% tax on places for eating. Currently, places for eating, along with all the other businesses, have a general sales tax, an additional supplemental sales tax of 0.5%. That's going to be ending July 1st, and so it'll end the end of June. And so the discussion was if we imposed a 1% tax, there'd be a 0.5% difference from what patrons are currently paying. And it's just what it sounds like, a tax on places for eating. So it's a tax on the gross receipts of food sold for immediate consumption at a place for eating. This is food that's sold basically that can be consumed on the premises, regardless of whether or not it is actually consumed on the premises. So going through a drive-through at McDonald's, for example, because you could eat the food at McDonald's, it would still count as a place for eating, would still be subject to the tax. regardless of whether or not you go through the drive-through. Same thing for takeout or catering. If it's prepared from a place for eating, so from a restaurant that has seating available for eating, then it would be subject to the tax. If it's a location that does not have, it's not a place for eating, where you couldn't sit down and eat, then any food that they sold would not be for immediate consumption, and therefore would not be subject to the tax. So as we talked about, the amount of the tax that was originally listed in the budget was for a 1% tax, and this would generate roughly $500,000, which could be used in the general fund. And then since that time, it was discussed at an Administration Finance Committee about some different opportunities we could use, some different options there would be if we wanted to issue bonds to be able to take care of some infrastructure improvements that are needed throughout the village. And we discussed the ways to be able to pay for those. And one of the options that was listed, so basically we were able to determine that if we did a couple of different things, we'd be able to pay for bonds up to approximately $9 or $10 million to be able to do some public infrastructure. And in order to do that, we'd have to make a few changes. One of those changes would be, instead of simply having a 1% tax, it would be a 1.5% tax, which would generate an additional $250,000, which would then be used to go towards paying off the bonds if the village were inclined to do that. So if we do a 1% tax, which was what was originally listed in the budget, that's a 0.5% increase from what somebody's paying now. So if somebody goes to get a $100 meal, then they'd have a 0.5% increase, or they'd have an extra 50 cents above what they would be paying now with a 1%. If we do the full 1.5%, then that would mean that they'd be paying an extra $1 above what they're paying now on a $100 meal. There were some other options that were discussed, both for at the budget time and then also for ideas with bonds. One of the other items that was discussed at the budget time was vehicle stickers, which would generate close to the same amount of money, but at the time it was decided that places for eating would be something that would be preferred to vehicle stickers, largely because of the fact that a lot of the home rule revenue sources that went away were items that allowed non-residents, people that travel through our town and use our services, to be able to contribute to it. So the general sales tax, the motor fuel tax that was initially there was something that wasn't borne just by local businesses or local residents. It was something that out-of-town residents that use our services would be able to contribute to. And that was one of the things the board talked about with regards to this Places for Eating tax, that it would be something that could be passed on to those individuals who come in and use our services. With the bonds, we had discussed other options of other ways to fund the bonds, but the only way to fund a bond immediately would be to do this Places for Eating. We talked about other options, such as having some referendums, but those would not be available until November of 2014. So we could do a referendum at that time to do a bond, but if we wanted to move forward more quickly, we'd have to do something through this Places for Eating. One thing that was mentioned was also on the packet online, but has changed slightly, is the comparison of what other towns do. And let me see if I can zoom in on this.
Yeah, you have to manually.
You may not be able to see the numbers very well, but at least you can kind of see the location of this. So this has changed just slightly from the item that was in your packets and one's available online, because it has added, Darien has been added onto it. Darien was not part of the original survey that was provided to us, and so they weren't included on this chart, but now they are. So you can see the red line, which is at the bottom, is where Westmont currently is with the 0.5%. And these are arranged with the highest item, so Hanover Park at the highest, having the highest total impact for the Places for Eating, which is 3.5%. And so you can see Westmont currently is towards the low end. The blue line is if Westmont were to do a 1% tax, and then the green line is where Westmont would fall if it were to do the 1.5% tax. So as you can see, the 1% tax would be right about the middle of the communities, and the 1.5% tax would be a little towards the high end, but certainly not the highest. And you probably can't see it on the chart, but the average of those communities that have a Places for Eating tax is 1.4%. So our 1% would be below that average. If we did 1.5%, it would be slightly above the average. And the total amount for communities that have either a Places for Eating or a general municipal sales tax, the total impact the average is 1.3%. So again, our 1% would be slightly below the average. If we were to do 1.5%, it would be slightly above the average. And I've also prepared a similar chart with a little bit more neighboring communities. I don't know if you can sort of see that as well. Set up in the same manner, the higher ones are at the top. You can see that, again, at our current rate, the red or the pink line, Westmont is towards the bottom, so with a total of 0.5%. With the 1%, we're right in the middle, and if we were to do a 1.5%, we'd be, again, towards the top, but not the highest. So Hinsdale is at 2%, Lombard's at 2%, Downers Grove, Clarendon Hills, Willowbrook, and Darien are at 1%, and then Oak Brook and Woodridge are at 0.5%. And as was mentioned, we had a meeting with some of the downtown restaurants, and they had a couple of specific questions and concerns. I just want to address those briefly and kind of give what answers we can. The first question that was asked was about catering, and specifically how it relates to catering from restaurants and catering that are done without restaurants. And it's, as I mentioned before, the way our ordinance reads, and also in discussion with other local communities who have this ordinance, it's the same way that they do it, which is that if it's a place for eating, if there's a restaurant component, a place where people can sit down and eat, then even the food that's prepared there, even if it's taken off site for catering, that food is still subject to the tax. If it's a place that does not have seating and is not a place for eating, then the food would not be subject to the tax. And it depends on where the food is prepared, whether or not it's a place for eating. And another question was asked about catering contracts. So there's some restaurants that expressed concern that they'd already entered into some catering contracts, already quoted some prices for individuals, and had used the 0.5% sales tax rate, which they had currently, not realizing or anticipating a higher places for eating tax. In conversation with the village attorney, we're going to be able to work it into the ordinance that those quotes are already entered into, and those agreements that are already done before the ordinance is passed could be grandfathered in. And so we would have a time frame where those restaurants would bring the documentation, the backup supporting that quote in to the village. We'd be able to get it on file, and then they'd be able to deduct that and not have to pay the additional tax on those specific contracts. Another concern was listed about the fact that some companies have fixed prices, and so their menus already include the tax in the menu. It's not something they just add on after the fact. And it was pointed out at that time that if the village does a 0.5% tax, they won't have to change their menus or reprint them. If they do a 1% or a 1.5% tax, they would still have to reprint their menus. And then the other option that was discussed or requested was the opportunity to report monthly versus quarterly. So their draft ordinance requires them to report monthly, or if they report their state tax less frequently than monthly, so if they do their state tax quarterly, they're able to do this tax quarterly as well. And that's very consistent with what the other communities do as well, which is the monthly unless they do their state sales tax separately. So the businesses simply report and remit the payment to the village when they do the same thing with their state tax. There'd been a request to see if we could allow them to do it quarterly. And while it's obviously easier if everybody's on the same page and everybody does it monthly, we could work around the quarterly. We could have something on when they register for this, we could have them specify whether they want to do it quarterly or monthly, and we can keep track of them on 2 separate sheets, and we can make it work if we needed to. I do think it would be just as simple for them to do it, remit to us at the same time they remit their state sales tax, but I don't have a huge preference one way or the other on that. So if the board's interested, we could change that to quarterly if that's something the businesses feel strongly about. And that's kind of general gist of it. I don't know if there's any questions from board members or anything at this point.
Okay, if not, I think the mayor's preference at this point would be to go ahead and open it up for public comment, and then we'll circle back and let the board have discussion or questions. So who would like to go first?
Good evening, Larry Forsberg, Westmont Chamber of Commerce and Tourism Bureau. First of all, thank you for tabling this topic at the last meeting. It was important for us to have an opportunity to get this information out to our 94 restaurants in the community. And over the last week, we were able to either hand deliver, email, call, or all the above, all the restaurants in the community to convey this information. Secondly, thank you for the opportunity for restaurants to not only comment tonight, and for those who can't be here tonight, to be able to comment on Monday. That way, everybody has, any concerned party has an opportunity to speak and be considered on this topic. We received kind of a wide range of feedback over the last 48 hours because this material really didn't go out until Monday, so it's really within the last 48 hours we started to get some comments. We do have some restaurant and other interested parties here today, so at this point I'll invite them to come up and speak, and I'll say a few words at the conclusion of that then. Thank you.
I'm not sure this is on camera.
There you, yeah, put that on camera.
No. Good evening, board. Thank you for your time. My name is Mark Link. I'm the owner of Uncle Bub's Barbecue. I hate speaking, but I'm coming up here because I oppose it. Like you all, you have a budget, we have a budget. We have to run our business, and we have to make cuts that we don't like to make, like you all have to make. And I feel, you know, in a restaurant business, the margins for a restaurant are terrible. We have to watch every penny. You watch the pennies, the dollars will take care of themselves, but our profit margin on a dollar is 15 cents on average. I spoke to 19 restaurants. I went to 19 restaurants last night. I spoke to 14 owners, all who had no idea that this was even going on, which shame on them, I guess, but I didn't know either until 2 weeks ago. I kind of, you know, when you do the percent based on $100, that's great, but when you do the volume, it adds up. I try to be part of this community, I try to give, and I try to do as much as I can for the community, but if I do the math, it's a lot of money for us. We do the volume. And that raises a couple questions. There's a lot of different types. Now there's more credit card transactions than there were before, but there's still cash. And there are some restaurants that still have 2 different registers. So how are we really going to know how much sales a restaurant's going to make? I have a POS system. I have to report everything from my catering to my restaurant sales to our festival sales, according to my accountant. And I had to agree with that because he's part of the family. So, so there's a few questions that I have with catering. And we talked, Spencer, you brought up a couple great points that we addressed on Monday when we met, and I appreciate that you took the time to meet with us in the first place. When we do the catering, we are one of the persons that book weddings out in advance. We have, last year we booked 88 weddings. This year we're going to surpass that. Next year in 2014, we have already booked weddings, obviously. We're doing the food. That's one thing, right? Is it food only? Because I also charge for rental equipment, linens, china, delivery, and staff. Am I getting taxed on that, or just strictly food? And how are you going to be able to break down those food sales? I can do it for you if you wish. Is that what you're looking for? I'm just trying to clarify it.
Yes. It only applies to the food.
Okay, it was not stated on there that we do fests. Is that part of catering? Does that fall under catering? You know, we travel around the United States doing Rib Fest. How does that fall? I still ring that through I ring it all through my POS system. I do that because I have to write checks for all my meat while I'm out of state. So I have to show it all. I show everything. I report everything. I have to do that to show that we're, for the most part, a profitable business. So if we ever decide we're going to sell, we have a good P&L. I don't know how many other restaurant operators have a P&L. I mean, I know from yesterday talking to the restaurant owners, a lot of them couldn't be here because they have to work their own business. Fortunately, I have some that can work on my behalf. But I'm against it. I think, you know, another percent, half a percent or 1.5% is going to affect us. Do I turn that on? Do I charge that to the consumer? I don't want to do that. It's hard enough to try to attract our customers down to Westmont as it is. The reason why I brought this bottle of water, it says Westmont, Illinois. All my menus say Westmont, Illinois. All my catering menus say Westmont, Illinois. I have a big Ribfest banner, and it says Uncle Bub's, Westmont, Illinois. I promote Westmont, and I've always wanted, always do want to promote Westmont. I think I do it more. There's a lot of restaurants that do it as well, but there's some that don't do it at all. There are also a lot of restaurants that do, some that maybe do a lot more volume than Uncle Bub's, but then there'll be some that'll do less volume. Would there ever be a cap? Just curious. Something that's, you know, there is a report in a restaurant magazine that U.S. restaurants for the forecast for 2013 and 2014 will have 3% more increase in traffic. However, they're going to have a 4.7% decrease in revenue. Why is that? People are spending less money. It's just the way it is. The economy's still bad. We're still feeling it. We're trying to get out of it, actually. And a lot of restaurants owners that I talk to, even in Westmont, are saying the same thing. There's a lot of debt out there. When I visited the restaurants last night, yes, I know the weather was terrible, and there was a Hawks game, but there was not many people in those restaurants. And we need to do the volume to make a profit. And a percent will hurt. That's all I can say. A percent will hurt. There's a lot of things that we need for our restaurant, but there's a lot of things. Once we did our budget, we said no, we can't get it. So I understand the situation here for the most part, and I believe because of home rule did not pass. If it did pass, this would have gone through. And I feel we have to feel the brunt of it. We're competing. There's a lot of competition out there, and they can go to other areas. And I saw the chart. I've looked at that chart, but when I go down Cass Avenue at 8 o'clock at night, sometimes it's pretty empty. When I do all this promoting, I do it because I want to increase revenue and sales. But now when I do that, part of me feels I'm getting penalized because I have to pay extra tax. That's one of the reasons why I'm against it. I don't know. I really don't like being up here, to be honest with you, but a lot of the restaurants that have had no idea that this was even coming. Well, we just redid our website. We just changed our prices. And we just redid all of our menus, reprinted 10,000 restaurant menus and 20,000 catering menus. We just redid our menu boards, and now we will have to redo all that again because I don't want to put this on to the consumer. I could put an extra tax on there, even though it's going to go down to 7.25. I just feel another tax to me is not right. Our catering business, you know, let's just use, I don't want to use a name, but there's a retail store that does a very good catering business, but they have no seats. But yet people are picking up chicken cakes and desserts there all weekend long. And they don't get taxed, but I'm going to get taxed. Because when they come to my restaurant to pick up their catering, they're in my carryout room. They're not in my restaurant. So how is that going to work? Because I still have seats, I'm still going to get taxed for it. 4% of my catering is in Westmont. 96% of my catering is outside of Westmont, believe it or not. That part is also hard for me to swallow. We are running 3 shifts right now in the summertime. There might be a point where we outgrow it. What do? Do I continue to stay in Westmont for the catering, or do I move my corporate office down the road somewhere else where all that sales, all those taxable dollars will be gone. I don't want to do that. I'd rather stay right here for the catering. The restaurant's staying regardless, but the catering can always go to another location. I don't want to do that. I feel like I've been a part of this community. It's been 15 years and 8 months, and I'm a little disappointed that that this tax is trying to get passed. That's all I have to say, and thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Mark, can I ask you a question?
Of course.
This tax was initially decided because it would be a pass-through tax to the consumer. So it would be that extra 50 cents or a dollar, whatever it's going to be, on 100.
And I appreciate that you're saying on 100, but when we do weddings that are a lot more than that, it adds up.
No, I understand. I understand that. Have you had anybody ever complain about the tax that's being charged on your catering right now? Has anybody sat there and said, I'm not going to do it because
I've had people say, if I give you cash, can we get rid of the tax? I've had people say, and this, no, to be honest with you, I haven't questioned some of my items that are line item, service fee, delivery charge, tax, no. To answer your question, I've had no one say that, to be honest with you.
And the only reason I ask is because I have a retail store in Downers Grove, and a lot of times what I'll hear from people who come from Chicago or Cook County is, it's cheaper to go out here than it is to do it in Cook County. And I never get a comment of,
so
the tax is higher, it's always the tax is lower.
And if you live somewhere else and you buy, let's just say you buy your staff donuts every weekend, and you stop off at the Dunkin' Donuts right here on 63rd, would you go somewhere else if you know the tax is going to be higher? Or would you
Not a bit, because the gas to go that farther isn't even worth the aggravation.
Okay.
I mean, honestly, that's it. We figure it, $4 and something a gallon gas.
I personally do not live in Westmont, but I make it a point to try to give as much business to Westmont as I possibly can. And one of the things I always do every Saturday morning is pick up 2 dozen donuts and a medium coffee. And I bring in a bran muffin for one of my employees. And I do it in Westmont. I go past 2 other Dunkin' Donuts, but I do it in Westmont. So.
And so the question is that you don't want to pass the tax on to your residents.
Right.
But at that point, that's your decision to do that.
Correct.
Even though your customers may never even see it or even pay attention to it.
Correct.
Okay. I'm just trying to get where you're coming from.
No, just a question for the attorney with the point, because Mark does so many festivals, and yet festival food is not run through a cash register. It's cash. It's like,
we don't accept credit cards.
Pardon me?
We do not accept credit cards.
That's what I'm saying. It doesn't run through anything. It's, it's the same thing like the Lions Club festival. They're serving food, Festivals you would think would be exempt, or at least I would expect it to be exempt.
We're not the only governmental entity that charges taxes.
And I get that.
Okay. So you have to pay the IRS. You have to pay the state. You have to pay the village. They have to keep records. It's the law. If they don't keep records, that's the risk they take. If we don't know about it because they don't keep records because they do a cash business, that's fraud on the government. That's the risk a business owner has to take.
But
especially now with the way our state is, with the position it is, they are coming out and they're auditing more and more small businesses now than ever. So that's one of the reasons why I don't take the chance. Everything's up front. I don't pay everything goes through the books. Everyone gets a paycheck, not cash. I mean, it's just the way it is. I mean,
it's good. It should be that way. But if we chose, we could exempt that. We could, no?
Exempt what? Festivals.
Festivals.
But you've got states that charge sales tax, so if you go to a certain state,
I pay tax, exactly.
You have to pay tax in that state.
I do report.
They want to know who's coming in that state. You have to register with them, and you have to pay sales tax there.
Yep.
Right.
So he'd be getting double whammied.
Exactly.
By paying there and here.
Exactly.
Okay. I just think of myself as a consumer when I go out and eat and we get the check, I look at the total. I look to make sure maybe the entree was, whatever. I never look at the tax. I just don't. It's just kind of a given, you pay the tax.
And Mark, the reason that this whole thing happened is because of 94 restaurants and the amount of people that live out of town that eat here. So we didn't put the burden on the people who live here in town.
I respect that.
It wasn't to pick on you guys. But you were the only thing that was big enough restaurant, and the amount of businesses out there that made sense.
And I have,
Okay, so then my question would be, if there is a restaurant that does, let's just say, is it fair to a restaurant that does, let's say, $1 million in sales and a restaurant that does $500,000 in sales, that $1 million restaurant's going to be paying a lot more tax?
No, the customers are going to be paying more tax.
Well,
Not
if we pass it on to the customer.
And I'll guarantee you, 93% of them businesses or 93 businesses will probably pass it on. You may be the only person who doesn't, but I'd be very surprised if anybody else did.
I wonder if we should let everybody talk.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
We do
That's
have
fine.
other
That's
people
fine.
here and appreciate Mark's time.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Mark. Thank you.
We have a few other people we might want to hear from. So I don't know who wants to speak next. From the restaurants?
Well, then Mark can come back up.
Mark, I guess if you want to speak again.
maybe you could put the bottle on the overhead
Larry Forsberg.
so everybody could see it?
Larry Forsberg.
Larry, okay. I didn't know, based on your comments, Larry, if you knew there were other folks. Yeah.
I guess we have a quieter group today. But, you know, some of the things I heard were concerns over coming out of a bad economy from the last 4 or 5 years. Restaurants were hit really hard, and now they're just playing some catch up. Some of them expressed serious concerns over refinancing of property, lines of equity that they've had to take out in the last few years that they're now in the process of repaying. So it's the financial component that was expressed primarily in conversations with several of the restaurants. I do expect a few more to come out Monday night to share some of their insights. But again, and also thank you for the opportunity on Monday to come out and talk, because I think we had a very good discussion, dialogue about some of these challenges and concerns. So we know this is not an easy decision, and we're just looking to see what we can possibly do to make sure that we remain competitive, not only here within Westmont, but within the competing communities around us. When people shop, they do compare the bottom line price ultimately, and this comes as part of the factor of that. So thank you.
And Spencer, most of the surrounding communities, I think from your chart, do try, I forget what the numbers were, but most of them do charge at least a 1% tax. So in some ways, this could be viewed as keeping up with the surrounding communities from the village's part.
Yes, that's correct. So again, it's hard to see, but from here up, everybody charges at least 1%, if not more. And it was mentioned before, the average including even the ones that have zero, if you include them in the average of all communities is 1.12%. So the majority of them do charge at least 1%, and that's also consistent if you look at the villages nearest us, and from here up is the 1%, that point on. And then the other thing I just wanted to comment on was, in talking with the other communities, they've indicated that the majority of their restaurants do pass it on to the consumer. They simply increase the amount of sales tax that's on the receipt, that it's just the additional amount of tax. So just like they did when we passed the supplemental sales tax and it went on, and the state was collecting it, anytime the state sales tax goes up, the restaurants simply change the amount of sales tax. And the communities I've spoken with indicated that that's what their restaurants do as well, that they do pass it on. With regards to a cap, none of the other communities had any sort of cap on their tax for places for eating. I'm not familiar with any sort of cap on any kind of sales tax done by the state. I don't think that's certainly not commonly done. I mean, it's a similar principle to, with the sale of cars. The more expensive cars will end up paying, the customer who buys a more expensive car will end up paying a higher dollar amount, just as those that buy a more expensive meal will pay a higher amount, and the restaurants that serve a higher volume would pay a higher amount that they pass on to the consumers, just like, car dealers that sell a higher volume of cars would pass on a higher amount of tax as well. So that's typically how it's done.
I have a question for Spencer. On your list of neighboring communities, to me, this is an issue that's kind of related to bonding authority. Do we have any information on the type of bonding authority on your short list that those communities have?
I don't know what their situation is with what kind of bonds they are able to issue, if that's the question.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, there's a few bonds that we may be eligible for.
Right.
We could probably pull some information together by Monday, I would think.
I think the biggest thing to look at is whether they are home rule or non-home rule. And that would define what your bonding authority is, and that's the only real distinction.
And I think most of them were
Figure that
home
out
rule.
easily.
So if the short list.
I think most of those are
Not
home rule.
Lombard. not-
Lombard voted out home rule by referendum,
Right.
and it's never come back. I don't know, Hinsdale, I know is not, I don't think.
They are not. Clarendon Hills is not.
Darien
Downers
is.
is.
Darien
Clarendon
is.
Is.
Not.
Willowbrook, no, Darien.
Darien
Darien
is.
is.
Darien is, even though they don't,
Woodridge is.
yeah. Interesting.
About half.
Interesting
So
question.
I don't know if that,
Yeah, well, that's exactly what I want to know. Yeah.
did that answer the question then?
Yes, thank you.
This is really a tough topic because, you know, if you ask the people that live on Adams Street, whose street is crumbling, they'd probably be more than willing to pay this tax anywhere in town if it meant getting their street paved. And there's other areas like that. And our infrastructure is so in need, and this is about the only way we're going to be able to do anything like that. It's tough, you know, and again, we're always charged with looking at the entire community and what's best for the community as a whole. We all made the assumption that this tax would be passed through because that's the way it is in other communities, or seems to be anyway. So, you know, we have even more to think about now when we understand that some businesses may not want to do that. The other thing is, you know, like, I know, for example, you go into a restaurant that has a bar, and you might go to that bar before dinner and buy a glass of wine, and it might be $7 or $8, and it's an even amount, and they have the tax built into that. And then you go into the dining room, and you have a glass of wine with your meal, and you're taxed on that. So somehow, you know, they work it out. I mean, it can be done. It's being done right now to some degree.
Sir, I know we've heard from some board members, but do we have other board members that want to
Well,
comment or
I just wanted to
questions?
make a couple of comments, not so much as we go forward with this tax, but to the comments that Mr. Link made with regard to the notification. I'm the one who really talked to the mayor early on before the last meeting and said, we've got to put this off because they need to know about it. And I have talked myself to 2 or 3 of the places in town, and they said, I don't know anything about it. And I said, but I know it, notice went out to you. I know the change. I've seen the flyers that have gone out. And then, oh, yeah, well, yeah, I guess. And I said, well, do you have any thoughts? Well, I guess I'm against it. And I said, okay, fine. Why don't you really read, and then I'll come back and tell me. And in one case, I came back and they kind of said, well, it's going to hurt us, but, you know, it wasn't, and they're not here. So, you know, I'm concerned more at this point with the comments that we, of these 90-some places in town, and I'm not sure it's 94 anymore because we lost 2 this last week. Emmy's is closed, and I think Connie's is closed. But my concern more is the fact that that the notice is out there, that people do know what's going on, that they understand what we're working on here. And I'll be honest with you, when I first looked at this whole thing, I looked at it the way that Bob and some of you have talked about it. You know, if I walk in by Mark and you have a sandwich and a beer and it costs me $15, I'm going to pay an extra quarter. Didn't bother me. That didn't bother me. Their accounting, okay, as I talk to more and more places in town, their accounting is becoming more of an issue as opposed to me as a consumer buying. And folks are here from a place that I buy beef sandwiches from every so often, and they didn't get up to speak, but same thing. You know, it's not my sandwich that I get over there. I pay whatever the tax is, but it's their accounting. and they're putting it together. So that's become a separate concern. And I think Monday you'll hear more of that, and then we just need to make a decision. But my biggest concern in all of this is to still hear, even this week, about people said, geez, I don't know anything about it. And I know we've tried very hard to get that message out to people and let them know what's going on. And so at this point in time, I think we keep listening. I know there's at least two or three of the restaurants who were at the meeting that I was at with Ron, who said that they would love to be here to talk about it, but they're involved with cruising, so they're going to come on Monday, and that's fine. And we'll hear from them too. But that seems to be, it's not the individual consumer who might pay an extra 15 cents.
I will say I had one restaurant say to me, so if you have to do it, do it.
You have to do it, right.
You know, I mean, it's the cost of doing business. You know, it's the American way. Not the American way, but it's the Illinois way.
It's becoming the American way with taxes.
It's like,
yeah, I know.
So it's hard, because I can understand where it might be hurtful to some businesses.
Hey, Jim, you're saying that it's not the fact of passing the cost on to the consumer, it's the issue of dealing with the additional tax and accounting for it?
That's what I was getting. That's what we were getting when we met with this downtown group. Was a lot of the concern is the accounting
on how to do it,
and some of them do not. Some of them have. Some of the places that were there, and I don't want to talk for them, so we'll let them talk Monday. But they have a fixed price. They don't add the tax to their pricing. They're
like buying a drink at the bar.
Exactly.
As
like
opposed to in the dining room. So they already do it both ways.
It just wasn't part of what I had expected to hear. And the weakness of the margin. I will tell you that some of those folks, and maybe they will share it with us on Monday, but we've got some restaurants in town who have talked about maxing out lines of credit and don't know where to go from here. And their margins, as Mr. Linka said, their margins are so tight right now, and that's scaring me a little bit. I know what we're trying to accomplish. You know, I'm having a terrible time in my own mind with this because I don't want any tax. But you can't go that way either, because then nothing gets done. And we've got to work on this flooding issues. I mean, Mark, for heaven's sakes, had 6 inches in his place after that last storm. So there has to be a middle of the ground here someplace, I think. And at the same time, I think we need to look at some other avenues. So let me get off the soapbox for now. And we got a much more important person.
Mr. Calford would like to...
And this may be to Spencer. If it seemed like the surrounding communities had a 1.3% average, and then I believe you said as far as all of DuPage, there was 1.12, I think is how that averaged out. Had we explored as possibly a compromise of being at that 1.3 that would put us more so at the average versus above the average?
We can do anything we want as far as setting the amount of the tax. The state statute doesn't limit us, unlike some other.
I mean, numbers-wise, like where, what does that do to that? I think that's 700,000. Is that what we floated?
Does that still fund a bond? Does that still?
Is that still, would that get us to where we need to be?
You know, for instance, I worked in Itasca for 16 years. I guarantee Itasca, which is probably just slightly smaller than we are people-wise, does not have 90 restaurants. They probably have 20. Yeah. So would they even look at would they even look at a tax like this as a potential funding source if you don't have the numbers?
Yeah. 3 restaurants.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that becomes, that's probably another issue with some of the ones who aren't on this list.
Right.
I mean, you go to Winfield or to Wayne, I don't know if they have any. And so it's not a tax that they would look at anyway. The ones who have a lot of restaurants, except for 2 or 3 of the communities I see on this list, they've already enacted it because they've got numbers.
Well, I think we can probably look at that information and have that for Monday. I don't think we've actually looked at those specific different variations or permutations. You can probably get that for Monday. Why don't we let Mr. Califat, I'm sure he's
yeah, Bill, go
getting tired of standing there.
forgot what I was going to say.
You forgot?
I had a good point. No. The first thing I just wanted to bring up was on this chart and talking about the numbers on the chart for public, because I don't know if they could see it and stuff, but it's broken down as the place reading tax and then the municipal tax. And I think, just for clarification, the municipal tax, from my understanding, is to all businesses and not just restaurants. Is that correct? Okay, because I am not a restaurateur. Okay, I own another business in town here, but I helped out with passing out flyers and stuff like that to get the information out, because I think it's important that everybody knows what's going on, and if they choose to come up and state their opinions, that's up to them. At least they know what's going on. The comments I was getting out there just to put on the table was, why are we as restaurants that have probably the slimmest margins or some of the slimmest margins out of all businesses that are running out there, and talking to some of these guys now and seeing what their margins are, I'm glad I'm not a restaurant owner, okay? And my margins aren't that great. But some of their comments was, why are we as just the restaurants fronting the cost of infrastructure in the community? Why isn't that taken up by everybody? And I think that's one of the complaints, and I understand it's state statute and that's the only place that we can go, and if we had the home rule, then we could put it out to everybody. But in the situation that we're in now, that is one of the things that I got from talking to some of the business owners that I passed out to. And I tried to explain it to them that it's state statute and that kind of stuff, but I think they're feeling that, why are we singled out with these slim margins that have to pay for this? And I think that's one of the things that's in the back of their minds going, this sucks. So just want to throw that out there for you, too. Thanks.
Understandable.
Okay, now I know we do have another restaurateur here. Mr. Fleming, did you want to talk, or?
I'll talk for just a minute. I may come back on Monday because.
Yes, sure.
Oh, then he can't do it. Just got back.
Because you're a little busy tonight?
The mayor who lost his voice says you can't do it, only choose to tonight or Monday.
I don't really want to be, I'm John Fleming. Jay Fleming's Absolutely Delicious. I don't want to be at what I would say is an unfair disadvantage with the neighboring communities. I know that there's one or two around locally that have a tax. But on another point, those towns that I know of don't have a $16,000 liquor license that they had to pay. You know, Clarendon Hills is only $2,500 to start, where ours is $16,000. We're subsidizing, and I don't know what Mark said about the garbage. Did you bring that up? Okay, garbage is 3 times what you know I've quoted it out to be from other companies. We already do that. Let's see, I got a whole list of stuff that, and I'm just been running all night. So, like he said, the slim margins, unfair disadvantage as far as the other communities, and it's already hard enough to get people to come to Westmont, and now we've kind of advertised with the papers and whatnot that we're doing this, and I don't want to scare anybody away from Westmont. You know, you want to attract businesses to Westmont. By giving them extra taxes to pay when they move here, it's not going to entice them to move here. I think we could spend some time trying to get businesses to move here, and then you'll get more tax revenue. You know, if we had more businesses to pull from, might be a better way to go. You know, get some of these buildings, you know, moving as far as cleaned up and people in them. I don't know. I had a whole bunch of stuff, but I can't. I ran over here, so I just wanted to catch.
Come back on Monday.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I will come back on Monday because I do have some other things in mind. Okay.
Is there any other board member questions or comments? Okay, then I guess we will put this.
I have one quick comment. You know, it's obviously everybody has reiterated the fact that if we had a home rule, we probably wouldn't be in this. But what if we could put something in that if we ever do get home rule back, that this would be forced to be rescind? Is that something we could do?
Yes, the only caution with that is if you want to pledge this source of revenue for whether it's a bond or to finance some other financing mechanism, then you can't revoke it. And you really don't know what the future would hold in that regard. But you can at least informally discuss that, and that the, I think you have talked. The only reason you're doing this is because Village lost home rule.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
So it would at least show intent, and we could potentially be in a better position once home rule returns, which it will. We know eventually it will, one way or another, either through population or referendum. We could rescind it. And if nothing else, bring back a gasoline tax.
I just have one other question. Is this really the only option? I mean, is there no other ways to raise tax revenue in this town?
So we...
Isn't there like a list that they give you?
Yeah.
Okay.
We distributed it to the board, and, there are other taxes, but they're for very specific purposes, like a bridge tax or hospital tax or things like that. There's nothing else that we have identified that could go into the general fund of the village to be used for street improvements or whatever, balancing the budget purposes.
Okay.
Because just like the restaurants are in a tough position, if you've heard
Yeah, it's not easy. I mean,
process, the
like Lee said, our margins have gone up. I mean, the price of everything's gone up. I mean, huge. And it's hard to pass that on because people just don't get it. You know what I mean? They don't get it. Bottom line. They go to the grocery store, they see the prices going up, but then, you raise something a quarter and they're like, you're way too expensive. So, all right, I'll finish.
Any other comments? Okay, then this item will be on Monday, and then we'll also allow public input on Monday. The next item, which
Ron, I have one quick question. Are we going to have it on for 1.5% for Monday to vote? Or would it be, is that what we're doing, as 1.5? Okay. Just want to make sure.
Yeah, I mean, you guys can change that.
No, I
That's
just
how
wanted
it's
to
been
clarify. That's all.
framed in the past, yeah. The next item on the agenda is a Community Stormwater Management Ad Hoc Committee. We talked about that a little bit earlier. I don't know that there's any more information unless the board members have any questions or comments. As was reported, we have a number of volunteers, and we'll have a list of those volunteers for the board to consider appointing to that ad hoc committee on Monday. Hearing no other questions, the next item is...
Actually, I've got just a quick comment, because we put an ordinance together based on, I think it was a staff email basically saying, here's the structure of the committee, which looked great, and that's what we incorporated. One of the tasks of the committee was secure funding and begin improvements. And we took whatever the list was and put it right into the ordinance. Is that really the task, one of the tasks of this committee, to secure?
I think we need to rephrase that.
More to explore opportunities. Yeah.
Up above, it says research
Yeah.
and create proposals for mechanisms to fund stormwater management initiatives. So it's in there.
It's sort of more to explore and do some research and what are those opportunities.
Yeah, and then report to the board, and the board
Yeah.
would actually secure
Yeah.
those fundings, and the board would authorize beginning the improvements. Right now, it says, at least according to the write-up we got, what?
Nothing.
Okay. The committee's appointed by the mayor. Does the board want to have the right to give consent to those appointments, or do you want to give the power solely to the mayor?
The mayor. Fine with the mayor.
He can't say anything anyway. Give it to the mayor.
Okay. And the only other thing that was missing from the ordinance that I will add is that the committee shall serve until dissolved by the Board of Trustees. I want to give the board, if that's all right, the power to say, we don't need this committee anymore. They've done their job. Thank you very much.
That's good.
Did you say until we dissolve the Board of Trustees?
Dissolve the, oh. That's all I have.
Thank you.
That's coming.
I'm sorry, what? The next item on the agenda is an item that was also carried over from the last agenda. It's a village right-of-way dedication. Board to consider an ordinance adopting an honorary designation of an existing village street. I don't know if we have that sign here tonight. I know that, did we take it away? We gave it away. It's already gone. Saturday night, there was an event for former Mayor William Rahn, and at that event, he was presented with a sign that I believe says William Rahn Way.
Honorary
Get it stated correctly. And that sign will be erected at the intersection of Lincoln and Quincy. So this would be an action kind of retroactively approving that honorary designation. Any questions or comments? Okay. All right, that takes care of unfinished business. Now, under new business, we have the Class B tobacco license, which actually was old business, but it was pulled off the agenda. And we have Deputy Chief Gunther here, who we know is not 100%.
Like 84.5%.
84.5%.
Oh, you're getting better.
Yeah,
And he's here with a
already getting
petitioner
better.
The drugs kicked in, so.
to address this question that was on the last agenda, so.
Thank you.
Didn't sound right.
It just didn't sound right from the deputy
I have a
chief.
prescription from a doctor.
Yeah, okay.
He said he was a doctor.
He was a doctor.
I'd like to introduce Mo Rashid. He's here on behalf of Westmont Quick Stop. The new name apparently might be Westmont On The Go, so the name is in a state of fluctuation, but
I like Corner Grocery. I thought that was so cute.
Corner Grocery was.
apparently that was a sign for the Stickney location. And
If you like that, we can always.
Mo was up
It's your business.
for whatever for persuasion. So, just a little bit of history. Mr. Rashid has approached the board in the past for a development permit for the B1 zone. He was granted that permit. We, like manager said, we did have it on the agenda. We pulled it due to a potential issue with the landlord. That issue was vetted out in the last 2 weeks, so there's no issue moving forward. Our request tonight, or the petitioner's request, is for a Class B license for tobacco. The Village of Westmont has 2 classifications for tobacco licenses, an A and a B, and he will be seeking a Class B, which is for the type of business he proposes. The location is 4 West Burlington Avenue, and without further ado, I'd like to introduce Mr. Rashid. He's going to go over his background as his education, his training, his business, and he's going to talk about the business model and then how tobacco would be incorporated into that business model. So,
thank you. Just like Deputy Gunther said, my name is Mo. I'm here on the behalf of my family's business, Neighborhood Foods. Basically, thank you for originally granting our business license, and we're looking forward to being a part of the Westmont community. If any of you had the chance to kind of come out and take a look at our other 2 locations, we thank you for doing so. If not, it's not that big of a deal, because the aesthetics is definitely going to change compared to what our other 2 locations are. We understand that it's a different kind of community, different kind of neighborhood, and we understand the kind of the feel that Westmont's kind of looking for, and we're working on that every day. Just kind of a little bit about myself. We've had the other 2 location, or the one major location, or the main location, for 27 years. I'll be 26 in October, so I've been helping the family out with that location ever since I was really young. They would tell me that I would come to the store to try to help, and then start kicking the customers out because they would try to buy the candy, and I wouldn't let them. But kind of my background is I went to school for accounting, and I kind of try to help out with that end of the business with my family. My 9-to-5 job is I'm a chemist, so kind of different career choice. Was always good at math, but my dad's expertise is in kind of having different stores. We've had a few different stores over the last 27 years. The family business was my dad and my 2 uncles. Throughout those years, we've had different gas stations, different grocery stores. We even had a bakery. So my dad kind of brings the expertise in running the convenience store and running the grocery store. We plan on opening July 1st. Hopefully a little sooner. We still have to have the fire department come out and the health department come out and approve everything. We just got electricity to the store, and we set up all our utilities. Hours of operations, starting out, these times are definitely going to change, but kind of starting out, we were thinking of doing like a 5 a.m. to about 8 p.m. sort of thing, for at least for the first month, just so kind of get a good idea of the kind of what times are most busy and what time is kind of slow. We do plan on kind of staffing it with family at first, just to kind of get an idea of the business and what times are busiest and so on and so forth. But we are planning on hiring up to three part-time employees from Westmont as well. In regards to the tobacco license, some of our other 2 stores, they are located in Cook County. So in the past, we did do a lot of tobacco sales. However, present day, it's probably less than 5% of what our business actually is. Some of the stuff that we sell at our other stores, a lot of kind of packaged items. We accept food stamps, we accept WIC, kind of stuff like that, cereal, bread, milk, kind of stuff that you would expect at like a grocery store, something that you need a carton of eggs. You don't want to drive out to the grocery store and do your entire weeks of shopping. You have that convenience. Also kind of knowing that we're going to be by the train, people kind of on the go, we do plan on having bottled water, soda, stuff like that. We do also offer a lot of that at our other stores. Both of our stores are actually located next to, what are they called? What is it called? Laundromats. Laundromats. So we do have a lot of kind of soaps and different laundry detergents and stuff. But one of the reasons that we are seeking the tobacco license, and I mentioned in the past that it's not a make or break for us. However, we do want to kind of give ourselves every opportunity to succeed. I have kind of been driving around and kind of checking out the areas near Westmont, and there is a gas station and 7-Eleven and convenience stores fairly close. The reason why we want to have the tobacco license is to make sure that we offer that convenience to the commuters and the people in the area. Being from our other 2 locations are in Cook County, a pack of cigarettes is almost twice as much in the city than it is out in DuPage County. So we see the opportunity and we see the need that for smokers to purchase it out here rather than going to the city. And if we didn't offer our customers that option, we're worried that they might stop at the gas station or somewhere else rather than stopping at us, even though we are more conveniently located by the train. But we definitely don't see that tobacco being our #1 product. We do plan on having different accessories, different kinds of electronic devices and such. But we definitely believe it would help with the tax problem and just kind of help with some of the foot traffic into the store by having that option. And if you guys have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer.
I guess the question I'm going to have is what kind of accessories would you decide to have with the tobacco end of it? Because that's my biggest part of the problem.
With the tobacco issue, I understand that is an issue, and I actually have discussed it with Deputy Gunther in the past. At all of our other stores, we don't really sell accessories, and by really, we don't sell any accessories other than lighters, and then we do sell loose tobacco and the rolling papers for that, but any other kind of
No
paraphernalia.
pipes or anything like that?
Yes, no pipes, any kind of drug paraphernalia or anything like that we don't offer. Deputy Gunther had a chance to kind of stop by and we still urge you guys to stop by if you'd like. But we haven't sold any of that since day one. I mean, if you have had a chance to stop in and speak to my dad, he loves to talk more than me, and he'll tell you all about kind of our history in the area. We did start out kind of almost as a tobacco wholesaler, or not necessarily a wholesaler, but we did have probably 85% of the business was tobacco, probably an entire shelf just dedicated, entire, not shelf, but an entire aisle dedicated to just tobacco. And kind of over the last 20 or so years, it's shrunk to just a little section, and the only reason that we have it is we're grandfathered in to owning the tobacco license, and in case in the future he ever decided to sell it, it'd just be easier to kind of do the package deal.
I have a question for the attorney. Would we be able to, if we were to approve this license, would we be able to tie it together with the grocery part so that, to protect the village, I mean, I'm sure he's very honest, but to ensure that 6 months from now he's no longer a grocery store and now he's Village Tobacco Shop, which that sign is still up there. Could we tie the two together some way?
Well, the tobacco license ordinance, I don't believe mentions conditions.
Okay.
A development permit request came before you with, at the exact same time, a request for tobacco license. You had every opportunity then to condition the development permit, and that's how I would have recommended to do it. But
Okay.
once you've let a retail business come into your downtown, which is a redevelopment district, and you haven't conditioned it, it's too late just to say on the tobacco license, you can't have more than X% sales.
Okay. 'Cause I think I made it.
Suggestion.
Well, and I wish I'd thought of it sooner, because clearly this is not something that I feel that we should increase the number of licenses. I thought if there was a way to tie them together even now, or if he'd be willing to enter into some sort of an agreement, if that's possible, then I'd be able to support it a little easier. But I'm still very uncomfortable that the sign for the Village Smoke Shop is even still there. I don't know why it is. I don't know.
It'll be taken down by the end of the
Oh, I know you will, yeah. We appreciate that, or at least I appreciate that.
We just don't want to get into a situation which we have now, which we have a convenience store, which is 80% liquor and
Exactly.
food.
Exactly.
Right.
I understand.
And we don't want to get into the paraphernalia end of it,
Right.
right, where everybody, gets off the train, 1,200 people a day, and it's all full of pipes and stuff like that, because all of a sudden he's not there, his family's not there, and he's brought in somebody who's an employee who decides to bring it in on his own, and
Or whatever.
Well, if the applicant wants to go, with his permission, go back to amend that, he's got some vested rights now that you approved the development permit ordinance. So it would require his consent to go back and, by agreement, put in a percentage limitation for sale of tobacco products and agree to no paraphernalia sales. We have a paraphernalia ordinance on the books already that prohibits that, correct?
And
certain paraphernalia sales.
Well, it has to be proven that it's used for illicit purposes, so it's gray.
It's gray.
It's tough. We've been struggling with that for years.
Well, and from that end, I mean, I have no kind of, what's the word that I'm looking for? Nothing against putting something in the agreement that does limit the percentage, and I mean, I know for a fact that we wouldn't be putting any kind of pipes or anything like that, so we could just write down that we won't have any of that altogether. That doesn't scare me at all.
Do you have a percentage recommendation for limiting tobacco sales compared to your total business, percentage of total sales?
I would have to kind of discuss that with my father, just because from the way that we've kind of been talking and everything, with his reaction to whether or not we were even granted the tobacco license, that we still wanted to go ahead and be a part of the Westmont community and open the store. I don't see him really having to, I mean, don't want it to be like 5% or something like that, but we would definitely consider something reasonable.
So this is up for a vote on Monday. I don't know with the rest of the trustees whether an agreement such as that would impact your vote on making this license available. You know, you have to consider, you know, what's in the best interest of the public and the public health, safety, and welfare when you make this determination. And if you think that having a place of business that's 80% of their business is tobacco is not in the public interest, then
we'd have an issue with having a humidor up on Ogden Avenue. I don't have a problem with the percentage.
Okay.
I have a problem with the paraphernalia.
So you're suggesting,
I apologize.
I'm sorry, I just going to say, so I understand the agenda concept. You're suggesting that we could actually put the development permit item back on for reconsideration with some conditions, if that's what the board would like to see, along with this item.
right, if the board's going to vote this down unless there's a percentage on there, then yeah, let's get that agreement back on the, or
I'd
the
like to see the
development permit back
percentage.
on the agenda.
I can only say for myself, I'd be very hesitant to vote in favor of this without assurances that 6 months from now, it's only a tobacco shop and nothing else.
What's a percentage that you're comfortable with?
I would like to let him,
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
something that you could live with, that.
Yeah, I mean, we
hurt
want
your
you to be
business.
successful and make money and
Understand.
to have a good business, you know?
So I guess with the petitioner's agreement, we can put this on the agenda for Monday to approve a tobacco license, approve an amended development permit that prohibits paraphernalia sales as defined in our ordinance, and limits tobacco sales to X percent. And you'll come back and say, here's a percentage that we're comfortable with, and the board will determine whether that's acceptable.
Does that work for you? Good.
From your presentations at Economic Development, I've been very impressed all the way through, and I respect your family business. I know when you guys said that we would go forward either way without the tobacco, I was a little taken back because personally, as a businessman, I think that the tobacco may be tied into your success. I can see where a lot of people could get a gallon of milk and a pack of cigarettes. I mean, we all see this at convenience stores, gas station, things like that. So, you know, again, for having a business where we don't keep getting this transition of businesses moving out, I'd like to see you have that ability to earn that. Again, I'm like Bob, I'm not tied into a percentage because, but I would like it to keep with that corner grocery theme or whatever name that you decide on. But I do think it is tied into the success and longevity of your business here.
And we understand that it's about building trust and kind of with the community. And I mean, if we, just to be perfectly honest, if we wouldn't be approved on it, we're not saying that maybe 6 months down the line we wouldn't try to reapply for it, because I do agree with you, and my dad does also agree that it is in the best interest that we do offer that, and there is a possibility that it can be a big part of the business, and that's not something that we want to completely kind of disregard, but I also understand that it's probably, or it's not going to be just a tobacco shop. Our kind of main focus is to kind of have a convenience store, something that people after 4 o'clock have the option to go to. On cruise nights, we do plan on being open and being involved in the neighborhood, and kind of giving the commuters and also the residents the option and the opportunity to have that convenience there.
For the board's consideration, I did conduct 2 unannounced inspections of the Stickney and the Cicero location a few weeks ago. And just to keep your mind at ease, the Stickney location, I found the tobacco was very difficult to even spot inside the store. I had to ask where it was located because I couldn't see it just on line of sight walking in the door. And admittedly, it's a newer location. I believe it had only been open for a month or so. The Cicero location, which has been there in existence for over 20 years, I walked in, the tobacco would be located where tobacco was located in convenience stores. Signage was proper. The security was fine. Mo's dad spotted me in a second.
Taking pictures.
Trying to take pictures of the location. And we had a very good conversation, and everything that I worried about, I was set at ease for the perspective of the tobacco and the tobacco sales. So I was pretty comfortable with it.
And we do have a clean record over the last 27 years. We've never sold to any minors. My dad wears his pins proud. I think I'm not exactly sure the terminology, but 5-star rating or whatever it is. Yeah, there's people all the time that try to come in, and he has his pins and he has his signs, and we've never in our last 27 years at any of our locations with employees or with family members there, we've never had an issue with any of that. So we're very responsible. Any other questions?
No, I'm excited for the store. I think there's a very much a need for that type of business in our downtown that people can walk to, or as you say, they're getting off the train, and they can grab a box of cereal and a gallon of milk, you know, whatever they need, those staple kind of things. So
you
excited.
guys like Westmont Corner Store better than?
I just was, when I saw it, I thought it's kind of catchy because it's not exactly on the corner,
Yeah.
and it's just.
Well, our Stickney store is called Stickney Corner
Yeah,
Store.
I
And that's
just-
actually a sign from when we were getting ready to open it, and my dad just, it's like, well, I don't have a sign made up, but we just kind of makeshift it to kind of, just so people have an idea that there's something coming into to the location.
Great idea. Well, whatever you name it, I'm sure it's going to be very good.
Any other questions, concerns?
Thank you.
Well, thank you guys for your time.
Thank you.
Look forward to working with you.
Okay, so this item, well, these two different items, I guess, will be on the agenda for Monday night for consideration. Want to jump back quickly to the village right-of-way dedication. I was just given a note that apparently Saturday night it was decided that we would like to actually locate that sign at Des Moines and Cass instead of Cass and Quincy, or Lincoln and Quincy. So I wanted to let the board know
The farm
that
was
that's
there.
how it'll be worded on Monday night. So.
That's good.
The next item is the Westmont Police Department intergovernmental agreement for emergency communications. The board is to consider an ordinance accepting and authorizing an intergovernmental agreement between the Village of Downers Grove and the Village of Westmont for a police department backup radio system, which will use a UHF radio frequency that is currently owned by, I think it's supposed to say Downers Grove on here, right? Mine's cut off, so.
It should say Village of Downers Grove.
Yeah, I think it says Village of Downers Grove.
Not
But I'll
ours.
let the chief explain the details. I know this is something that he's been working on for quite a while now with the Village of Downers Grove, and we finally got an agreement.
Thank you. A year ago, the Westmont Police Department and all the departments in DuPage County, both police and fire, moved to a radio system called StarCom. It's a county-wide radio system, and we migrated away from our historical radio system, which was, it's called VHF frequency, to go to the StarCom. We are in need of a backup system. If the StarCom system would go down, and we've received assurances that it won't, but we still would like to have the backup, as all other police departments and fire departments are doing. Our VHF system was antiquated and was up and running, connected by phone lines, et cetera. We now consolidate with our consolidated dispatch with Downers Grove. Downers Grove has a radio frequency called UHF available, and we approached them to see if they would let us have access to their radio frequency. They would do so. They requested the IGA. They also requested that there would be some type of funding going with that. And the reason for the funding is because we are using some of their equipment, using the equipment for our radio signal to get to their dispatchers and back out to our officers. So over the year, we have been working with Chief Porter and Deputy Chief Bluter and trying to work this agreement out. One issue was the cost. And we have been negotiating, and I could say that initially the cost was much higher than what it is now, but the cost now will be $4,086.18 annually, which is a cost that we feel very, very comfortable with. And Downers Grove was very, very generous in reducing their cost to meet our request. So with that, the IGA, the intergovernmental agreement, is before you to allow us to have access, expend the funds, and have a radio backup system. And the next agenda item, I would also like to give thanks and credit to Deputy Chief Conley from the Fire Department and Chief White from the Fire Department. You'll hear more about their system, but basically we piggybacked on them, and Deputy Chief Conley was invaluable to us in helping us reach this agreement.
Chief is being modest about the cost and how much effort and length of time it took for him to get them to move that cost down. He worked pretty hard at that.
Yeah, the original cost was somewhere up near close to just a little north of $10,000, and by working things out. And again, Chief Conley, Deputy Chief Conley assisted us with that, but through our negotiations and working with Chief Porter and Manager Fieldman from Downers Grove, they're very, very cognizant of the fact that we want our consolidation and our partnership to continue and to continue to grow. It's been a very valuable partnership for both of us, and we both want to do everything we can to see that continue to work.
Okay. So if there's any questions from board members, comments, anybody from the public? If not, then the next item is the Westmont Fire Department Intergovernmental Agreement Radio System. Board to consider an ordinance authorizing an intergovernmental agreement between the villages of Clarendon Hills, Downers Grove, Westmont, Hinsdale, Willow Springs, the Tri-State Fire Protection District, and DuPage Public Safety Communications, which is known in short as DUCOM, for the Southeast DuPage County Communications and Radio Networks. This is a revised intergovernmental agreement that's necessary to add DUCOM, I believe. And we have Deputy Chief Connolly here, who is our radio expert, to explain and answer any questions.
You chair the steering committee, man.
Yeah, but you know the technical stuff. I just pretend like I know what I'm
Thank
doing.
you. And, thank you to Chief Mulhern for his nice comments. Yeah, this, for those who've been on the board, this is the project that has been going on for about 2 years. The major radio system project is about a $500,000 project that is being reimbursed by the ETSB. This is the ongoing governance document that describes what the responsibilities of the participants are in the system going forward. The manager described who the participants are. The only change in participants are Oak Brook left the system because they went to DUCOM, and DUCOM became a participant. In terms of the general language, indemnification, that type of thing has been reviewed by the attorney. It's fairly similar to what was in the prior agreement. We've had an operation like this for more than 10 years, and it's worked very, very successfully. As the chief mentioned, we operate with Downers Grove in a consolidated dispatch center. Our fire frequency is moving to a frequency that's shared with Downers Grove. It's licensed to Downers Grove for the fire side. This IGA covers the system we're on and the Downers system. Leave out the details. In addition to combining these two radio systems in one agreement, we've also built out about half of that $500,000 cost is a fairly sophisticated microwave communication network, which all these signals move across the communication network instead of using phone lines, which are getting very unreliable and very expensive. Just for example, the phone line that we are eliminating from the PD to the current dispatch site is $5,000 per year if we renewed that one phone line. And every receiver site and every transmit site has to have phone lines. So this is a much better way to go. In addition to the participants listed on the fire radio side, DUCOM uses the communication network, the microwave, as does the Westmont Police Department. The only real responsibilities, if you get through all the language in the document, basically for the village, we are, as a village, are responsible for securing the equipment, meaning limiting access to it. We need to insure it to the extent we have village coverage on this type of equipment. We basically pay 1/6 of the annual preventive maintenance agreement, and we get, as a member, choose to pay 1/6 share of any replacement or any damaged equipment. And to answer your next question, you might ask is, well, what if that gets really expensive? At that point, our choice would be to essentially pull out with 9 months notice. So we do have an out. Our goal is to maintain this system. This is our backup, just like the police talked about their backup. And we expect the need for some type of VHF system for at least the foreseeable future for many, many years, given lots of other technical issues which you don't need to get into right now. So we'd ask for your support and approval of that IGA and ask any questions you might have. Hearing none.
No comments, questions of the public? Okay.
Thank you.
The next item is revisions to the Village Westmont Code of Ordinance related to alcoholic beverages, license fees. Our Deputy Liquor Commissioner will come forward and talk about actually a subject that was brought up earlier this evening, which has to do with looking at revisions on our initial fees for alcoholic beverages.
How's that percentage doing?
What's that?
Is it still 84%?
I think it's lower. It's dropping rapidly.
It seems more robust.
It's getting late.
Talk fast is right.
Sure. I don't know if I can on this issue,
Can't lose you.
but I'll try.
It's a long one.
The two documents that the chief is passing out, we're going to talk about the one with the yellow highlight with Westmont on it. It says class 1 through 5 at the top. The background of the issue, this was brought to staff's attention by former trustee Fleming, probably in fall of 2012, where he was approached by several businesses wanting to look at the fee structure of our liquor license initial and annual fees. I conducted a survey of surrounding towns, which we're going to talk about first, and then several other things happened in the interim or subsequent to Trustee Fleming's initial request. So this is a summation of all those things. So what we're asking the board to consider tonight are two proposals, reducing the initial liquor license fee. With our liquor fees, we have two categories. We have initial fee and we have an annual fee. In staff's research, we have determined that our initial fees are quite high by comparison with other municipalities. However, our annual reoccurring fees are right in line, average to slightly above average, depending on the category. For purposes of comparison and for discussion tonight, we have 20 different liquor classifications. I chose the first 5 to look at because really going from 1 through 20, the concept and the premise is the same. And I wanted to use comparables that were most apples to apples. So we're talking about restaurants that serve beer and wine only, and large box retail with a minimum square footage of 5,000 square feet. So you can see from the first graph, Westman's at the top in the yellow highlight, and you can see that our initial fee, for example, of a Class 1 license, which is your larger restaurants in town which serve all liquor, that our initial fee is $15,000 and our annual fee is $3,000 thereafter. And moving down the column, from Aurora down to Woodridge, we're alphabetized. In spaces where there are no numbers, I could not find a comparable, or at least something that was apples to apples defined by ordinance, because I read every single one of these ordinances to figure out which category they fit with compared to ours, which was a difficult task. In the boxes where only one number is indicated, that will tell you that there was no initial fee that was enumerated in the ordinance, and so the assumption is that that is the only liquor fee that is applied to that category. For example, Bartlett for a Class 1 comparable would be $1,000. They don't have it. They don't spell out an initial fee. Moving down the column where you have DuPage County, Hinsdale, Oak Brook, Warrenville, places where you have the two numbers. The first number is the initial fee, the second number is the annual fee. So you can see moving down, if you compare Westmont's initial fee to all the towns with an initial fee that is specific, we are much higher categorically than any other comparable, much high, very high. So that is what we're looking to address. So the two proposals, proposal number 1 is making our initial fee equal to the annual fee. And the second proposal would be making our initial fee double our annual fee. And moving on, or turning your attention to the second chart, which has section 1037 license fees, I broke that down with our classifications. So as you look at this chart, look at the chart as you were a prospective applicant for a liquor license, and the dollar amounts and the differences as we move from left to right. So again, taking the Class 1 restaurant example, our current initial fee is $15,000. Our annual fee is $3,000. Under the first proposal, which would be making the initial and the annual fee equal, that initial fee would drop from $15,000 down to $3,000 for a savings to the applicant of $12,000. Under the second proposal, which would be the initial fee being double the annual fee, the initial fee would be $6,000 for a savings to the applicant of $9,000. And that's borne down the list till we get down to about Class 16, which I'll talk about in a second. So, you know, some of the benefits, and which were addressed earlier under a different item, are what is Westmont doing to make ourselves competitive with surrounding towns? And this is really what we're looking to do. So in an effort to bring in businesses, get startup restaurants, getting restaurants to move from one town to another, this is where this is coming from. You know, anecdotally, talking to businesses that are coming to town, you know, they say, hey, your initial fees are very high, and you know, here's what we can do with that extra $12,000 if we had it in our pocket. You know, we can give you this type of restaurant for $12,000 less, or we can jazz it up and make it, you know, essentially $12,000 better. So it's where the board wants those entrepreneurs to put their money. Moving down toward the bottom, you'll see that I have there's negative numbers. And I'll explain that really quick. The Class 16, 18, 19, and 20, we'll start with the 18, 19, and 20. When Trustee Seneca was Mayor Pro Tem Seneca, we sat down and had this discussion, and at that time, Trustee Seneca agreed that based on this data that we were slightly out of line with surrounding communities. So in an effort to bring us more competitive, at least for our caterer, theater, and brewery licenses, we decided to bring those numbers back down to where they needed to be by comparison. So in doing so, we actually created a little bit of a monster with this proposal, because if we apply the proposal number 2 to the caterer would actually be out of pocket $500 more than what we're currently asking for in initial fees. So talking to Attorney Zemenak, attorney this time, right? You're not the trustee or the mayor?
That's right, tonight.
Gotcha, just making sure you're paying attention. So talking to Attorney Zemenak, we will address that, carving out the current applications that we have for the theater, the brewery. The caterer is no longer an issue. Truffleberry Market was granted their liquor license a couple meetings ago, so they're a non-issue. But we took that into consideration in the draft proposals. So with that, in a nutshell, with a lot of numbers, is there any questions? It's a lot, so.
What is a Class 7 liquor license?
Hotel?
Class 7 is a hotel. That would be your Marriott. So just based on size and area, I don't think we're going to be getting any of those anytime soon. We're out of land.
My question would probably be to the village manager or Spencer. If we reduce these fees, that comes out of the general budget.
Mm-hmm.
Correct?
You're talking about, yeah, we're talking about reducing primarily the initial fee, and I believe those do go in the general fund, right?
So it's a one-time.
Spencer Parker will be happy to answer that question.
Pardon me?
It would be all the initials.
Right, the initial.
For any new business.
Yes, so the initial fees as well as the annual fees do go into the general fund. Typically, when we budget, we take a look at the entire account and we say, well, if we've had high years with a lot of initial things, we want to kind of dial it back a little bit. And looking over the two proposals, if we go with option 2, which is doubling the initial fee would be twice the amount of the annual fee, then we'd be pretty much at a break-even point with where we've budgeted this year. If we go with option one, we would potentially be a little bit under budget with revenue there. We would estimate to be at most right around $8,000 under budget is the estimate, although some of that would potentially be made back by the fact that you may have additional restaurants coming in. You may have the ones that come in pay less than they were originally, but you might have additional people coming in. So it may only be an impact of maybe $4,000 or $5,000. So it would be an impact, but it's one of those where you have other things to weigh than just the budget, which I don't say very often. But there's other things to consider. But we could make it work if that's the board's direction. We could make it work.
Thank you.
I like proposal number one. I think that brings us competitive. I think that's
Just
what we-
kind of looking at the other sheet, it is a little
We need to
more.
be competitive.
And even with proposal number 2, we would still be high by comparison
Yeah.
if you put that in. We'd be
new
walking it back down from where we're at, but we would still be high with proposal 2 as opposed to number 1.
What a great.
Timing is perfect just because of the two TIF districts.
Yep. This is just another thing we could promote.
Absolutely.
Westmont lowers their liquor fees.
According to your-
Come
your
on
survey,
in. Restaurants.
2/3 only have one.
You know what I mean?
Excuse me?
According to your survey,
Let's
2/3
put
of
it
the
one
communities
more
only have one fee, right?
Right.
Yes, that I could find in their ordinances, yes.
So that's more typical.
No initial
than-
fee?
Not that I could find,
Initial fee.
and I read all these ordinances. It was a stack this big. That big.
And in theory, to attract more businesses, we'll make it up on the sales tax long
Yeah,
term.
the- Good point.
Yeah, and I could tell you, I know of one business in particular that was looking at the old Pizza Hut North location at Cass and Ogden, and
Example.
yeah, that prevented them from moving in. I know there's at least 2 businesses in town who have Class 4 licenses, which are the beer and wine, which is much more, which is cheaper than 1 or 2. So that's keeping them from an all liquor license. So I know there's 2 of those out there. So it does have an impact.
Where does a restaurant like Uncle Bub's fall in this category?
They are either probably a 2, 75 to 200 seating, all liquor. I think they have all liquor. Do they have anything other than beer and wine? Just white wine? Okay, so they're Class 4.
Class 4? Okay.
If we do approve a new fee, can we contact that restaurant that wanted to come in but ran because of our fee? To say, hey,
You know what? That was probably 4 or 5 months ago, yeah.
well, I know they didn't open it anywhere else yet.
And if a business wanted to switch, if I wanted to go from beer and wine to all liquor, do we then put that initial fee on them for that new liquor classification?
Generally, I believe that they have to forfeit their existing license, and then they have to reapply. I believe that's how it works. Kerry Kamak would know that better than I, but I
And no
believe that
credit, if I paid 5, I got to pay that
Right.
15 then, and
Yeah, and
no
I think
credit
there's-
on that 5.
Yeah, there's been some exceptions in the past. Well, I think there's been some work done with the businesses that are in that boat. But yeah, but they definitely have to forfeit their license before they can apply for a different classification.
I do.
During your tenure?
1994.
Yeah.
And there were much higher initial fees in the other communities back then.
I was, trustee Addington was asking when the last time was we reviewed this, and he recalls that it was 1994. I know we've talked at a staff level as to why there's such a big difference, and I think historically, my recollection from past discussions is we try to discourage certain types of establishments.
I think also, because I remember this came up when Mayor Ron was here, and, Mayor Ron was a bit strict with the liquor control, and his understanding was, owning a liquor license in town is a privilege. And if you have to pay a little bit more, you're going to take that privilege very seriously, and you don't want to lose your license. And I think, given some of the past history of Westmont and many, many, many decades ago, that may have been a motivating factor in setting the fees high initially. What I know with some other towns, in particular Downers Grove, their fees are not as high, but when there's a violation, they come after you and hit you up with some very high fines, including potential, suspension or revocation of a license.
So it kind of gets the both, you get the same effect.
Yeah.
Right.
When I
Good, you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah,
When I took
exactly. They
over-
deserve it if they're not.
When I became mayor in '93, I was not happy with the liquor ordinance. We rewrote the entire thing, basically. And we did the same kind of survey, and I'm telling you, back then, the initial fees in some of these other communities were higher. I think what we're seeing in this survey is exactly what Sue and Steve just said. I think economic development is driving some of that decision. And I think that it's a good decision to go in this direction. But there's no question in my mind that's why it's there, and
Yeah.
I'm glad that you guys have done this.
Yeah.
Other questions?
It's interesting when you think we have 94 restaurants in this town, many of which serve alcohol, yet they still came here. Think what it could be, and with the TIF, we really want to be restaurant-friendly.
And I have to say that it feels like we've had a lot of applications. I mean, just look at the different classifications, from standard market to the caterer, theater, brewery. I mean, we've created a lot of class. So there are, people want to come in and do their business in Westmont, and I think this would definitely go a long way to even accelerating that further.
Yeah.
And
I
it's
agree.
probably the cost of the rents that kind of offset the cost of the liquor license.
That's true.
Could be.
I agree. If we can,
I would go
in the
with
budget,
proposal one.
go with proposal one, if Spencer
Fine with
can
me.
make those numbers work for us, I would say number one, we need to be a little more like our peers, our surrounding communities.
Thank you.
Okay. The next and final item under new business is DuPage County Natural Hazards Mitigation Plan. Board to consider a resolution to adopt the DuPage County Natural Hazards Mitigation Plan for 2012 as an official plan for the Village of Westmont. And we have Chief Weiss who's going to address that item for us.
Yes, thank you. Again, DuPage County's being proactive, same lines as our emergency operation plans where they're requiring all the villages and the cities to adopt that plan. It's tied, these plans are tied to, from the county to the state and even with FEMA now. And along that line is grant funding. DuPage County's cleaning up, their act with things that they need to bring in line to protect their county, and they're passing those things down to the individual municipalities. Again, we're here to ask that you create this ordinance. I'll be working with Public Works Director May with several of these items to make sure we're in compliance. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
No questions, comments?
Thank you.
From the public? Okay, do we have any other miscellaneous or other business?
Nope.
And I do not believe there's any request for executive session, so ask for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So move, Seneca.
Second arrow.
We're not anxious or anything, are we?
Call the roll or?
Trustee Seneca?
Yes.
Nero?
Yes.
Trustee Barker?
Yes.
Trustee Scott?
Yes.
Trustee Barry?
Yes.
Trustee Addington?
Yes.